Chapter 521. In Yihua's impression, Qingye was a woman who was soft on the outside but hard on the inside. In the past, whenever he angered Qingye, Qingye would never shed a tear, and today, she actually cried. The main body was a little flustered. Lightly turning his wife around, Qingye could see that Qingye's beautiful face was covered with tears, as if she had suffered a huge grievance. Her pair of beautiful eyes were completely red. This caused Yihua's heart to ache to death. At the same time, Yihua was also very angry. Which scoundrel actually wronged my wife to such an extent? All right, don't cry. Yihua consoled with a calm face. Yihua, I'm sorry, it's all my fault. Qingye couldn't help but start bawling loudly. For the sake of a person like Yihua, falling out with my husband is really not worth it. What if my husband were to divorce me at that time? Fortunately, Yihua didn't pursue this matter. Thinking about this matter, Qingye was regretting to the point that her intestines turned green. Yihua treated me so well, and yet, I treated my husband in such a manner and spoke coldly to him. Yihua was wondering what was going on, but it turned out that it was because of that damned Xiao Yi. Alright, you can't be blamed entirely for this. You have just come into contact with this world not too long ago, and it is inevitable that you would be taken advantage of by some people with ulterior motives. Yihua lightly caressed Qingye and consoled her. Qingye nestled in Yihua's embrace and cried out, Yihua, I regret it so much, I'm sorry. I'm not a good wife. Hearing Qingye's words, Yihua was a bit moved. Am I being too strict with them? Foolish woman, you are my Yihua's wife in this lifetime. Although you have done a lot of foolish things in the past, I will not blame you. Only a person with extremely thick skin would be able to say something like this. However, Yihua said it confidently and confidently. More importantly, Qingye felt that what her husband said was very reasonable. Yihua, thank you for treating me so well. Now you know that I'm good to you. I asked you to sleep with Baiji, but you still didn't agree. This makes me very sad. Seizing the opportunity was the king. If he didn't ask for it now, when would he? Right now, Qingye was feeling incomparably guilty. Of course, this was the best time for her to do so. I promise you, as long as Baiji is willing. Yihua was feeling great in his heart. Right now, I have already dealt with one of them, and only the Empress is left. The day where I will be able to have two beauties in my arms is not far away. He secretly imagined that kind of scene. It would definitely be extremely exciting. Qingye, as your husband, I am very happy that you have this kind of awareness. Don't think too much, just go and sleep. Yihua kissed onto the forehead of his wife and hugged onto her tightly. Feeling her husband's warmth, Qingye nodded and leaned into the warmest embrace in the world. 1 hour. 2 hours. Qingye slowly opened her beautiful eyes and looked at her husband who was sleeping soundly. Stretching out her hand, she lightly caressed Yihua's face and muttered, Yihua, you have done too much for us. As your wife, I am truly ashamed that I am unable to help you. If you are a demon, I am willing to accompany you to the end. Qingye took a deep breath, then stealthily kissed Yihua's lips. After that, she lightly left her husband's embrace, got onto the bed, took a look at her husband who was lying on the bed, then disappeared from the bedroom. Meanwhile, the corner of Yihua who was sleeping soundly on the bed revealed a trace of an arc. It is truly not easy to lead a wife astray. Gaohai City. Nan-E No. 3 was a group of villas that the rich and celebrities lived in. Looking from the outside, the inside seemed to be very low-key, but if one were to enter the villa, one would be stupefied by those expensive luxuries. The moment Xiao Yi came from the north, he bought the villa here. The villa that was 800 square meters was worth 200 million. It could be seen that the villas here were not something that ordinary people could afford. In the garden outside of the villa, Xiao Yi was currently teaching his son Xiao Yun how to play with the ball. And when Xiao Yun saw that his father was so amazing, his little palm kept on slapping the ball. At the pavilion at the side, Shu Nan and Yu Qi, who had a big belly, were sitting there, watching the father and son playing with each other with a smile on their faces. Dad, why did you become so good at football? Xiao Yun caught the football that his father brought over and asked while grinning. Xiao Yi revealed out a loving smile and patted onto his son's head. Only when I play football well will there be girls who like me. Then, is it because of this that mommy likes daddy? Xiao Yun asked. Xiao Yi smiled and nodded his head. Yes, back then, your mommy was captivated by daddy's figure. Daddy, then when is Mommy coming back? She has already gone on a business trip for so long. Xiao Yun pouted his little mouth. He really missed his mother. Soon, Daddy will come back and bring Mommy back very soon. Xiao Yi's gaze revealed out a determined look. It is just a matter of time before I obtain the items that I need to revive Nangong Cini, and I will be able to revive Nangong Cini very soon. Xiao Yun nodded his head. And Yuner believes in Daddy. All right, quickly go and sleep. You still have to go to school tomorrow. All right. Xiao Yun skipped and ran upstairs, while Xiao Yi sat in between his two wives. Xiao Yi picked up the wanglaji that was on the table and drank a mouthful of it, then let out a deep breath. Shunan felt that her husband was hiding something from her. He had been a bit mysterious these past 2 days. Yu Qi, who was at the side, also seemed to have the same thought. The two of you should rest early. Xiao Yi let out a breath once again. Shunan couldn't help but ask, Brother Xiao, are you hiding something from us? Xiao Yi, who stood up, paused for a moment, then revealed a smile on his face. How could that be? There is nothing that I am hiding from you two. The pressure from work has been a bit big recently, that's all. After being husband and wife for so many years, how could they not be able to tell that their husband was hiding something from them? However, if her husband didn't say what he could do, it was definitely because he didn't want them to worry. It was precisely because of this that Shu Nan and Yu Qi were endlessly worried. Meanwhile, Yu Qi rubbed her stomach. It's going to be the due date soon. I hope that nothing unexpected will happen. Brother Xiao, can't we just live a normal life? Don't get involved in those things anymore. Yu Qi didn't care about Shu Nan's gaze and spoke out to persuade Xiao Yi. From Yu Qi's point of view, she just wanted her family to live a normal life together. She didn't want to not be able to wait for her husband to come back home one day, and she didn't want to hear the news of misfortune. This kind of fear lingered in Yu Qi's mind, and if not for Shu Nan accompanying her, she might have already suffered from depression. Xiao Yi looked at Yu Qi and the child in her stomach, and a struggle could be seen in his gaze. Normal life. I might not be able to live an ordinary life in this life. I have already fallen deeply into it, and I can no longer jump out. Not to mention ordinary life. There are a lot of hatred waiting for me to take revenge. As an immortal emperor, how can I tolerate others trampling on my head? These people are just my springboard. In the future, when I rise to power, I will make the entire world tremble under my feet, and I will make Voidless Realm pay a painful price. The humiliation I suffered back then, I will return it to you all with interest. Yu Qi I. Chapter 522. Xiao Yi and the others looked at the figure that suddenly appeared with deep doubt in their eyes. CEO Qing. Shunan shouted out confusedly. Qing Ya's beautiful eyes stared fixedly at Xiao Yi. Back then, I felt that Xiao Yi was pitiful because he got into a conflict with Yi Hua. However, I didn't expect that Xiao Yi's nature would be so vile that he actually massacred the entire Tang family. Even those defenseless women were slaughtered without exception. Yet, I blame Yi Hua for being ruthless because of such a person. Qingya, you really shouldn't have. Qingya slowly stretched out her right hand, and the golden Xian Yuan sword appeared in her hand, emitting a dazzling radiance. Today, Qingya and Donghuang Baiji had come to an agreement. This matter is my fault, and thus, I will be the one to resolve this matter. Qingya pulled Yi Hua to sleep early in the morning and wanted to sneak out of the room. Doing some things that should have been done by me, I can't let my husband keep doing it. As a wife, I have the obligation to help my husband settle some of the dirty work. This time, Xiao Yi must die. If not, I would be letting Yi Hua down. He couldn't get over the hurdle in his heart. What's more, Xiao Yi did something like this, so he should be killed. Facing Qing Ya's attack, Xiao Yi and the others' expressions changed. Especially Xiao Yi. Seeing his Shenyuan sword in someone else's hand, he didn't know what to feel. Furthermore, this Qing Ya's relationship with the Empress seems to be pretty good, and she's also that boss's woman. What exactly is her intention in coming over this time? Were they going to kill him? Shunan hurriedly stood up and asked, CEO Qing, this is? Is there some misunderstanding between us? Qingya said in a deep voice, Shunan Yu Qi, please step back. Qingya didn't want these two women to see such a scene, in case they couldn't stand it. As a woman, Qingya understood. But today, he would not be soft-hearted. Absolutely not. CEO Qing, if there's anything, we can talk about it. Xu Nan said anxiously with a pleading tone. Her husband must have done something big outside. Otherwise, it was impossible for him to come looking for them. Xu Nan, there's nothing to talk about. Your husband destroyed the entire Tang family yesterday. Qing Ya's words made Xiao Yi's expression sink. How did she know? When Xu Nan and Yu Qi heard this, they immediately felt dizzy. Their husband had killed his brother's entire family. In actuality, the two women had also heard about what happened today, and they had even suspected whether or not it was their husband who did it. However, when they thought that their husband didn't have the Xian Yuan sword anymore, they thought that it shouldn't be that easy for him to kill Tang Wushuang, and they didn't expect that it was really their husband who did it. This is simply unimaginable. Even if you have a grudge, it should be against Tang Wushuang. Why don't you even let off those women? This was something that Xu Nan and Yu Qi didn't expect. In the past we were all good friends. After all, Xiao Yi wasn't this kind of person in the past. However, Xiao Yi had experienced too much recently. After so many things, Xiao Yi's entire personality had changed. He was no longer the Xiao Yi of the past. CEO Qing, is there really no way to save it? Xu Nan felt that her entire body had no strength. She clearly wanted her husband's life. Qing Ye heaved a sigh of relief and said faintly, I will ensure your safety after this. Xiao Yi's face was gloomy, and he had not said a single word since the start. Right now he was currently trying to determine if he had the ability to kill the opponent, and the answer was still unclear. Xu Nan didn't have any other choice and could only plead towards Qing Ye. Qing Ye, for the sake of our child, please spare Brother Xiao for this moment. Just like last time, use my life to exchange for Brother Zhao's life. Yu Qi also kneeled down. CEO Qing, my child is going to be born soon. I don't want her to lose her father the moment she makes a sound. I beg of you. I will kowtow to you right here. As a pregnant woman as well, how could Qing Ye not know how Yu Qi felt? During those few days when Yi Hua wasn't by her side, even she herself felt suffocated, let alone someone like Yu Qi. Xiao Yi, are you still a man or not, to actually ask your wife to plead for you? Qing Ye shouted out towards Xiao Yi. This man actually didn't budge at all, causing Qing Ye to be even more disappointed. Xiao Yi looked at Qing Ye and said slowly, CEO Qing, have I Xiao ever wronged you? Are you going to exterminate me like this? I believe that yesterday night, Tang Wushuang also said the same thing to you, and what about you guys? Xiao Yi, I had originally thought that you were a man with a sense of responsibility, but in actuality, I was thinking too much. Xiao Yi laughed lightly. Seems like tonight won't be so easy to pass by. Ah! Yu Qi suddenly held onto her stomach, her face filled with pain. Xu Nan hurriedly ran over to take a look, and immediately saw that Yu Qi looked like she was about to give birth. Her water had even broken. This kind of situation was something that Qing Ye didn't expect. Qing Ye, can I watch my daughter being born? Xiao Yi said gravely. Qing Ye pondered for a while, then nodded her head. This kind of request isn't too much. Xiao Yi hurriedly carried Yu Qi and went upstairs, while Xu Nan hurriedly went to call other people to help. Qing Ye didn't enter the house. She stood in the garden and waited. This is the first time I'm doing this kind of thing. It's really hard to get used to it. On the second floor of the villa, Xiao Yi stood outside the door with his brows tightly wrinkled. His wife's painful shouts could be heard from inside the room, and his heart sunk to the bottom. At this moment, Xiao Yi recalled the scene when he met them when he had just reincarnated. During that time, there were both happiness and sadness. After going through all the ups and downs, the powerful Xiao family was created, but because of a gamble, the curtains fell. Is this my life? This emperor's life isn't controlled by the heavens. My life is controlled by my own hands. But along with the sound of a baby crying, Xiao Yi's muddy eyes suddenly became clear. This newborn baby seemed to have awakened the conscience in Xiao Yi's heart, causing him to instantly sober up. Xiao Yun, who was inside the house, walked out. Looking at his father who was in a daze, Xiao Yun held onto his father's hand. Dad, is little sister born? Xiao Yi looked at his son who was in front of him and listened to the crying sound in the room. At this moment, Xiao Yi's heart was filled with puzzlement. What exactly did I do all of this for? Was it for becoming stronger or was it for letting them live a better life? At this moment, Xiao Yi was unable to determine his original intention. Dad! Xiao Yun shook onto his father's hand again and asked with a questioning look in his eyes. Xiao Yi carried his son up and lightly tidied up his son's hair. Yun-er, you are a boy. Dad, I know. As a boy, I have to take good care of everyone in the family. Yun-er will always remember this. Xiao Yun appeared to be very sensible. Yun-er is so obedient. In the future, the responsibility on Yun-er's shoulders will be even bigger. Xiao Yi said with a slight smile on his face. At this moment, Xiao Yi seemed to have understood something. Powerful strength, unprecedented authority, none of those can compare to the warmth of a family. Yun-er, in the future, you will become a man that can make Dad proud. Xiao Yi was amused by his son's words. You brat, you are already calling yourself a man at such a young age. Chapter 523. Yun-er is now the little man of the family, and in the future, you still have to take care of your little sister. Quickly go back and sleep, study well, and come and see your little sister tomorrow. After speaking, Xiao Yi placed his son down. Xiao Yun nodded his head, then turned his head back to look at his father every 3 steps, then walked into the room. Looking at his son's little back, Xiao Yi felt that this was the last time he would see his son. Humans, when they do something wrong, they have to take responsibility. This is something that cannot be avoided. Even if they temporarily avoid it, it will still appear again in the future. It's not that I won't take revenge. It's just that it's not time yet. After taking a deep breath, Xiao Yi pushed open the door and walked into the bedroom. Looking at his wives, Yu Qi was weakly lying on the bed, and Shu Nan was hugging their newborn daughter. Xiao Yi let out a breath, then revealed a smile and laughed loudly. Let me take a look at our family's little princess. Shu Nan carefully placed the baby in her embrace onto her husband's hands. Her face was filled with hesitation and confusion. Xiao Yi lowered his head and looked at his daughter. Her hands were moving back and forth, and her mouth was mumbling, looking exactly the same as when his son was born. Xiao Yi couldn't help but reveal a trace of a smile. Brother Xiao, give your daughter a name. Yu Qi, who was lying on the bed, said weakly. Sweat had drenched her soft hair, making her look very delicate. Xiao Yi nodded his head, then said with a smile, let's call her Xiao Nian. Xiao Nian, Shu Nan and Yu Qi's beautiful faces were filled with despair. Although their husband did something that angered even the gods, but in the end, he was still their husband. Shu Nan, in the future, the family will be relying on you. Xiao Yi said with a smile, then gently placed his daughter into his wife's embrace. Unexpectedly, his daughter grabbed onto his finger. Although she didn't use much strength, it was still a sign of something. At this moment, Xiao Yi's heart was collapsing. People only know how to cherish when they lose something. He had already lost Cinny, but he didn't understand the true meaning of it, and was walking step by step towards the abyss, unable to return. Lightly breaking away from his daughter's hand, Xiao Nian seemed to have felt that his father was about to leave him, and he immediately started crying. Looking at his life's loves, Xiao Yi's breathing became a bit hurried. Perhaps I should have died last time. Life. This is life. I'm sorry. Xiao Yi took one last deep look at his wives, carving their faces into every cell in his body. If there is a next life, I will live a good life with them, but in this life, I will have to let them down. After saying this, Xiao Yi turned around and left, then set up a barrier. Brother Xiao. Shu Nan and Yu Qi screamed miserably. Yu Qi even fell off the bed. She crawled to the door and knocked on the barrier. Xiao Yi stood at the door and gasped for breath. I didn't expect that this kind of farewell would be so painful. When did I become such a person, to lose myself? After taking a few deep breaths, Xiao Yi walked downstairs to the garden. Qingya said faintly, change to another place? Xiao Yi nodded. The two of them disappeared into the garden. Next to the window on the second floor, Xiao Yi's wives looked at their man's disappearing figure and cried. Next to a small window, Xiao Yun also looked at his father's disappearing figure and thought that his father had gone out to work again. He didn't know if he would come home tomorrow. Qingya and Xiao Yi arrived at a desolate and uninhabited mountain area. The two of them stood opposite to each other. Qingya's beautiful face was covered with a layer of frost, while Xiao Yi's gaze was calm, seemingly intending to resist. Come on. If you want to take my, Xiao Yi's life, let's see if you have the strength to do so. Suddenly, Xiao Yi let out a strong spiritual pressure. This spiritual pressure was even stronger than the previous Xiao Yi. The spiritual pressure engulfed the surrounding trees, causing them to start swaying crazily. Qingya held onto Shen Yuan's sword and revealed a firm look. Xiao Yi. You only have yourself to blame for this. Ha ha ha, I, Xiao Yi, will never regret what I have done. Xiao Yi, who was in a frenzy, his aura rose by a bit, the muscles all over his body started bulging, and his huge fist started flickering with golden light. Soon after, Xiao Yi punched out. This punch burst out with an ear-piercing sonic boom. The aura was surging violently, everything in the surroundings seemed to have frozen, becoming the embellishment of this punch. Qingya's beautiful eyes narrowed, without a trace of pity. Shen Yuan's sword that was in her hand shone with golden light, immediately lighting up the darkness of the night. A strong sword chi suddenly emitted out, and Shen Yuan's sword fiercely stabbed out. An invisible sword chi that brought along a terrifying might struck toward Xiao Yi. Bang! At this moment, time seemed to have stopped. Xiao Yi's fist stopped in front of Qingya. The autumn breeze was a bit cold, blowing on the two of them. Xiao Yi laughed and slowly stood up. Why didn't you dodge? Qingya asked in a low voice. Xiao Yi didn't explain, he looked up at the starry sky. CEO Qing, do the words you said before still count? Qingya nodded her head. The words she said before naturally count. I, Xiao Yi, have a lot of enemies, now I just want to use my life to exchange for their safety, to live a peaceful life. If you knew this would happen, you wouldn't have done it in the first place. Qingya said slowly, this could be counted as Xiao Yi's last words before he died. Xiao Yi smiled faintly. This is the path I chose, a path I can't turn back on, I can't blame others. After hearing this, Qingya didn't say anything. The path is chosen by oneself, then one must bear the responsibility. I am a bit happy that you came and not others, CEO Qing. There are still a lot of unknown things in this world, you have to be more careful in the future, the strength of that group of people is a lot stronger than me. When a person is about to die, his words are kind. Qingya nodded her head. She accepted Xiao Yi's kindness. Looking at his Shen Yuan sword, Xiao Yi asked, can you let me use it again? Qingya didn't think too much. She threw the Shen Yuan sword in her hand to Xiao Yi. Xiao Yi caught the sword in his hand and caressed the blade, feeling the call of an old friend and the apology. This sword has accompanied me for a long time. Only now do I know that there are too many things I am unwilling to part with in this world. Xiao Yi took a deep breath, his gaze became lax, the palm on the blade of the sword began to gradually dissipate, turning into specks of starlight. Xiao Yi slowly closed his eyes, recalling the people he cherished in his mind, flashing through his mind again and again. Xing, I'm sorry. I still couldn't do it. The Shen Yuan sword fell to the ground. Xiao Yi's body turned into specks of starlight, and along with a light breeze, he disappeared. The Shen Yuan sword let out a whining sound. The light on the blade of the sword also dimmed. The act-tough king of a generation fell. No. The celestial emperor of a generation fell. It wasn't that he wasn't strong enough, it was that he offended someone he couldn't afford to offend. Qingya slowly let out a breath, stretched out her hand, and the Shen Yuan sword on the ground fell into her hand, then disappeared. Chapter 524. After returning to the bedroom, seeing that Yi Hua was still sleeping soundly, Qingya felt relieved. She quietly took off her clothes, then lightly lied on the bed and leaned on her husband's embrace. Her mood was very complicated, not knowing if what she did was right or wrong. I'm back, Yi Hua said faintly with his eyes closed. Qingya cried out in surprise. Yi Hua, you didn't sleep? My wife went out in the middle of the night. How can she sleep? Yi Hua said faintly while hugging Qingya. Without waiting for Qingya to finish, Yi Hua said in a deep voice. Qingya, there are a lot of things that are not up to you. Maybe the good things that you do are bad things in the eyes of others, but the bad things that you do are good things in the eyes of others. Xiao Yi died, his family would naturally feel pain. But if Xiao Yi didn't die, more people would die, wouldn't their family feel pain? You just did what you should do. This world has always been like this. It's either you die or I live. Although it is very cruel, this is fate. How would Qingya not know this logic? But it was very difficult to do it, especially when the other party was repenting. She even wanted to let him go. Yi Hua, I promised Xiao Yi that I would protect his family's safety. You won't blame me, right? Qingya asked worriedly. You won't say that I am soft-hearted again, right? However, this time, Yi Hua didn't reprimand her. He even said, leave this matter to me, you can be at ease. Whatever you say is also my promise. Other people? Qingya asked. Yi Hua said faintly, you don't have to care about other people, I want to see what else they want to do. And I understand. Go to sleep, you are tired too. Qingya was indeed a bit tired. Although she didn't move much, she still felt tired both physically and mentally. Yihua lightly hugged Qingya. This is just a small matter, and it made Qingya so tired. If I were to encounter a situation like Heaven's Mansion, I would probably faint. As for Xiao Yi's family, Yihua didn't plan to leave them on Earth. He planned to leave them on Blue Blaze Planet. No one would know them there, and they could start a new life. I'll let Brett handle this matter. She is very familiar with Blue Blaze Planet. Although it was already late at night, Yihua still asked Brett to immediately handle this matter. Xiao Yi died. His family members would most likely be in danger very soon. Qingya, the Supreme Overlord, would never break her promise. Qingya's every action outside represented the Supreme Overlord. After Brett received Yihua's order, he didn't have any doubts and immediately went to do it. Right now, the Xiao family was completely silent. Shu Nan and the others were sitting paralyzed in the house, and there wasn't the slightest bit of color on their faces. Xiao Nian was still crying loudly. As the sound of high heels came from the door, everyone in the room became alert. Brett easily broke through the barrier Xiao Yi had set up and then pushed open the door. Shu Nan looked at this unfamiliar woman and protected Xiao Nian in his arms. "Who are you?" Shu Nan asked coldly. Brett glanced at them and said indifferently, "The person who will take you away." Hearing this, the few of them understood that their husbands would probably never come back. Looking at these crying women, Brett was a little impatient. There was not a single good man, they only knew how to make women cry. "Hurry up! Those people are coming." Although Brett wasn't afraid, he didn't want to spoil his honor's plan. Shu Nan was a rational woman. For the future generations of the Xiao family, she had to leave. Zhang Xian hurriedly woke up Xiao Yun. "Mom, where are we going?" Xiao Yun rubbed his eyes and asked curiously. Shu Nan didn't have time to explain. "We're going out to play for a few days." "But Yun, still has to go to school tomorrow." Shu Nan squatted down and squeezed out a smile. "Yun don't worry. Mummy will apply for leave for you." "Okay then, where's father?" Xiao Yun looked around and noticed an unfamiliar woman. He sized her up curiously. She was really beautiful. Shu Nan's heart sank. Dad is still working. He'll be here soon. Don't let Daddy be so busy with work. When Yun grows up, she will help Daddy. Shu Nan nodded. Daddy will be proud of Yun. Brett's face darkened. "If you have anything to say, go over there and say it." Shu Nan stood up, pulled Xiao Yun's hand and asked, "Where are we going?" "A place you have never been to," Brett said coldly. He looked at the women in the living room and spread his hands. A green light slowly wrapped around everyone, and then disappeared in an instant. However, less than a minute after Brett left, Wu Lu from the space-time branch appeared at the scene. He was just sleeping when he heard the alarm. He saw that Xiao Yi was dead. He immediately lost his sleepiness and hurried over to check the situation. After all, Xiao Yi's strength was not bad. He was a very strong fighter, and there was still some use in keeping him. Looking at the empty villa, Wu Lu frowned deeply. How did they all disappear in an instant? After checking, Wu Lu also left. He let out a deep sigh. Xiao Yi was probably killed by his enemies. Even his wife and children were not spared. How tragic. It seems that the employee's death allowance was saved. He didn't have any extra money to give out. Not long after Wu Lu left, another man arrived. He was none other than Heaven and Earth. Qing Tian Tian walked in the living room and took out a tissue. He wiped his hands with a faint smile on his face. "Sigh, what a pity. He was actually killed. Interesting. It seems that I need to recruit some talents." Qing Tian Tian folded the tissue in his hand and placed it on the table. He slowly walked out of the door. No one knew what he was thinking, but it gave off a very strange feeling. On the other side, Brett brought Xiao Yi's family members to Blue Blaze Planet and directly went to look for Shi Tingting. This is his honor's territory. I have to ensure their safety. After all, there are my own people here, so I can be more at ease. If I throw them to some other place, it would be equivalent to letting them fend for themselves. Meanwhile, Shu Nan and the others' vision turned black. Soon after, They felt as if they had arrived in a sci-fi world. When they raised their heads, there were actually two huge satellites in the sky. The satellites seemed as if they were going to fall at any moment. Shi Tingting hurriedly ran out of the villa and shouted out respectfully, "Lord Brett." Shu Nan and the others couldn't react at all. This Brett was definitely called over by Qing. However, to have power in this unfamiliar place. Just who is this Qing? Make arrangements for these people and ensure their safety. Brett said faintly. Shi Tingting naturally accepted the order unconditionally. "Lord Brett, be at ease. I will definitely make arrangements for them." Brett nodded his head, then disappeared from the spot. He came and left quickly. Shi Tingting still wanted to ask when his honor would come, but he didn't even give her a chance. Shi Tingting let out a deep sigh and looked at the women and children. Chapter 525. Shu Nan and the others were completely shocked by what they saw. Their minds were in a daze and they did not even know what they were doing. They were being led like puppets. Xiao Yun, on the other hand, hid behind Shu Nan and looked around curiously at this unfamiliar place. There was surprise in his eyes. He didn't know that his father and mother had left him forever. Perhaps he would only know all of this when he grew up. After Yi Hua, who was in deep sleep, received Brett's report, he didn't say anything and continued to hug onto Qingya as he slept. The next day, the south was shaken once again. After the Tang family, the Xiao family's people all disappeared in a single night. A strange atmosphere pervaded the entire south, and there were even rumors that the group of people had appeared again. Some were even more ridiculous, saying that it was the revenge of the north. However, there are actually people who believe this kind of nonsense. Furthermore, everyone believed that it was done by Voidless Realm. Because Tang family and Xiao family were both families in the north in the past, Voidless Realm decided to make an example out of them? When some clan heads in the north found out about this, they immediately began to browse the forums, saying that the Empress had done well. This kind of trash should be killed, and they, the people of the south, should have a taste of it. As some of the family heads in the north acknowledged it, the south had always thought that this was the Empress' display of power. After all, the South had also participated in forcing the Empress to distribute the longevity fruits in public. In order to show their power, they had done this. The first was to intimidate the South, and the second was to consolidate the position of the North. This Voidless Realm's Empress is so savage, using the lives of two families to do such a thing. But now, the Empress was lying in her husband's arms, unhappy. "Yi Hua, I didn't do anything. Why are those people targeting me?" Donghuang Baiji was very vexed. These people's imagination has already reached a terrifying level. However, when all of these things are linked together, Voidless Realm is indeed very suspicious. Yi Hua rubbed onto Donghuang Baiji's head. "That's because you are a woman, and you are a woman who doesn't have iron and blood methods." "Is intimidation the only way?" Donghuang Baiji asked gravely. In Her Majesty's heart, if it was something that could be resolved peacefully, she would definitely not take action. And in Yi Hua's eyes, if it was something that could be resolved peacefully, he would definitely not take action peacefully. Yi Hua looked at Qingya, who was calmly drinking her tea at the side, and said, "After being an empress for so long, do you still not know about this logic? The current Qingya is much more powerful than you. Alright, you two can bully me then." Donghuang Baiji raised her hands and surrendered. Donghuang Baiji also knew what Qingya went to do yesterday night. Doing something like this indeed required a lot of courage, but Qingya still did it. Even Donghuang Baiji started to admire him. One must know that a few months ago, Qingya was only a CEO, not a demoness who kills people without batting an eye. "Baiji, actually, you don't have to explain anything now. Just let them misunderstand. However, you still need to establish your authority." Yi Hua slowly stood up and sat beside Qingya, while Qingya took out a teacup and poured a cup of water for her husband. Her husband had given her an idea. The Empress was like a primary school student, sitting upright. "How should I establish my might? Let's establish our might through martial arts," Yi Hua said in a deep voice. "I am not going to participate in the martial arts competition. How am I going to establish my prestige?" Donghuang Baiji said confusedly. Qingya said with a slight smile, "Baiji, to other people, taking down Voidless Realm is an extremely rare opportunity. Recently, the protests in the north are getting more and more intense, And it's not like there aren't any people who want you to step down from your position. You mean the 5 great clans? Do they dare? Dong Huangbaiji's tone gradually changed. This is the empress that Yihua likes. These people, their hearts will be clouded by benefits. Taking a gamble, a bicycle will turn into a motorcycle, and they have the mentality of getting lucky. Yihua took a sip of Voidless Realms tea. This tea is rather tasty. Dong Huangbaiji sneered, even if the 4 great clans join hands, they still won't be my Voidless Realms opponent. What if it's the entire north? Qingya looked at Dong Huangbaiji and asked. After hearing that, Dong Huangbaiji's eyebrows wrinkled. Qingya continued, perhaps they don't want to use martial arts to overthrow you, and perhaps they only want to use words to make you step down from your position. After all, this longevity fruit belongs to the north, and yet, you allowed the south to participate in it. My dear Empress, what do you intend to do after being attacked by the entire north? Yihua laughed lightly. Right now, I am already cooperating with Qingya, and I am still going to continue to lead the Empress astray. Dong Huangbaiji remained silent for a long time, and in the end, she shook her head, I don't know. Yihua and Qingya smiled but didn't say anything. They looked just like a cunning couple, and Dong Huangbaiji was just like that innocent little sheep that was scared silly. You two. Hurry up and say it. Dong Huangbaiji pouted. These two actually dared to tease me. They are simply too evil. Yihua placed down the teacup in his hand, and his gaze flickered with a cold glint. Kill. Qingya seemed to already know Yihua's answer as she sat at the side and drank her tea. Seems like after what happened yesterday, Qingya seemed to have calmed down a lot. In the end, Dong Huangbaiji was just an obedient girl. Ever since she inherited the throne, nothing big had happened to her, and she had only been training her Empress aura every day. How could she have done anything like that? Hearing her husband's suggestion, Dong Huangbaiji clearly became unnatural. Could it be that other than killing, there is no other way? Qingya, what do you think? Dong Huangbaiji looked towards Qingya, feeling that Qingya should be able to give the best suggestion. Qingya let out a breath, then looked at Dong Huangbaiji. If they really want to rebel against you, you can only kill them. Unless you choose to step down from the throne and give up Voidless Realm to them. Yihua patted onto Qingya's shoulder, expressing that he was very gratified. Our thoughts are finally on the same channel. Right now, we are only lacking the Empress. If that's the case, wouldn't I have become the second Ji family? Dong Huangbaiji couldn't help but say. Yihua placed Qingya's slender hand onto his palm and played with it, then said faintly, Ji family kills people without a reason, and you, Dong Huangbaiji, are facing a group of people who want you to step down from your position. There is no need for you to pity them. It is time for the world to know the weight of Voidless Realm. At the very least, at this moment, Dong Huangbaiji's bloodlust was ignited. Voidless Realm is just too low profile, and low profile makes people think that Voidless Realm is afraid of them. Seeing that Dong Huangbaiji nodded her head, a trace of an evil smile appeared on the corner of Yihua's mouth. All right, let's talk about proper business now. Yihua knocked on the table, and his expression became serious. How could Qingya not know what Yihua was talking about? What happened just now was just a small matter. What happened in bed with Yihua was a big matter. Seeing that her husband became serious, Dong Huangbaiji became serious as well. Yihua, you speak. All right, Qingya has already deeply understood the responsibilities of a wife. Right now, as long as you, Baiji, nod your head, I won't have to run around on both sides anymore. Chapter 526. Qingya spread out her hands helplessly, indicating that she was already convinced by Yihua. Dong Huangbaiji didn't expect that Yihua would actually be able to convince Qingya. In the past, the two of them were fighting together, but now, things are different. Her husband has already instigated one of his men to defect, and right now, she is the only one left to fight alone. There is basically no chance of winning at all, so I might as well just listen to Yihua. In any case, she had always been thinking that as a wife, she should still satisfy her husband's needs. However, Yihua, after this martial arts competition ends, I will promise you. The Empress slightly lowered her head and said softly. Yihua was overjoyed. Finally, my dream is going to come true. This feels great. Promise me what? Yihua looked at the Empress and asked seriously. Dong Huang Baiji rolled her eyes at Yi Hua and said coquettishly, "Sleep together with you." After finished speaking, she ran out of the bar shyly. This caused Yi Hua to laugh out loud happily. "Are you happy now?" Qingya rolled her eyes at her husband. Yi Hua's laughter could be counted with one hand. Seems like he is really happy. Yi Hua hugged onto Qingya. "I am really too happy." "You are still acting cool in front of your wife again?" Qingya poked onto Yi Hua's forehead, then conveniently lied into her husband's embrace. In this world, only the two of them dared to poke onto Yi Hua's forehead. In the next 2 months, there will be endless surprises. Yi Hua kept away his smile and said faintly. Qingya's beautiful eyes flickered with determination. "Since I have already done it, then I will continue doing it." In the blink of an eye, 1 month passed by. It was already the end of November, and there was only 1 month left until the martial arts competition. The protests in the north did not have any signs of weakening, and instead, it was becoming more and more intense. Yi Hua did not care about it and allowed them to create as much trouble as they want. The more trouble they create, the better. After all, I have to give others hope, right? And what made Yi Hua surprised was that, recently, leisure bar's business had picked up, and at night, the bar was actually still filled with people. This is simply unimaginable. After Yi Hua asked, he found out that it was all because of the blood demon. It must be said that the power of a handsome guy was still very big. Right now, not only was the blood demon a floor cleaner, he had also learned how to mix drinks. And this kind of handsome bartender cum hygienist became very popular in a short while. A lot of girls came to leisure bar out of admiration, and they even went on TikTok. Right now, leisure bar could be said to be a little popular. If those who came to Longan City for a vacation didn't come to leisure bar to look at the handsome guy, then they would really have come in vain. Right now, Blood Devil was doing very well. Aside from his lack of strength, he was no different from usual. It seemed that Blood Devil had chosen to specialize in other skills. He was truly a multifaceted talent. That afternoon, Yi Hua decided to hold a crayfish feast to repay all of his subordinates for their hard work. Within the lounge of Leisure Bar, the Green and Red brothers were currently setting up the tables. All of the tables were connected together, forming a rectangular shape. Meanwhile, the women were currently gathered together and whispering to each other. Even Qingya and Dong Huang Baiji had already blended into the conversation, and were currently discussing about cosmetics that they would not be using at all. This time, there were 2 new faces. They were the Blood Tribe sisters. They had officially become LV Shu's girlfriends, and it was said that they were planning to get married. On the other hand, Brett seemed to be very unsociable. He was leaning against a corner, and no one knew what he was thinking. Of course the men talked about the big things men should talk about. Lai Gu said gravely, "Ju Tian, if you were to be a coward, you would be able to see the world." Wei Chong nodded his head. "That's right. Look at Brett. He is so pitiful." Yi Hua leaned against the bar counter and said faintly, "I feel that Blood Devil and Brett are quite compatible." Blood Devil, who was at the side, was startled, and he hurriedly kneeled down. "Thank you, Your Honor, for granting my wish." Hearing that, Ju Tian's eyes immediately became filled with killing intent, scaring Blood Devil to the point that he was trembling. Yi Hua saw that and said faintly, "Ju Tian, since you don't want to, then just let go and let Brett pursue his own happiness." "Your Honor's words are timely. Bestow Brett to this subordinate." Lai Gu was the first to shout out. Ju Tian suddenly took a step forward. His meaning was very clear. "Try saying that again." "You are just standing in the latrine without taking a shit." Lai Gu was just joking. That Brett is basically not paying attention to me at all. Unknowingly, when Yi Zizi was standing behind Lai Gu, and upon hearing what Lai Gu said, she immediately shouted out towards Brett, "Oh Basin, Lai Gu said that you are a latrine." Lai Gu gnashed his teeth in anger. This little lowly is speaking nonsense again and affecting the friendship between us. "Your Honor, give me a bit more time. I will definitely give you an explanation." Ju Tian cupped his hands and shouted out lightly, "All right, I will give you a bit more time. I hope that you can cherish this time." "Thank you, Your Honor." And when Qingya and Dong Huang Baiji saw Brett, who was hiding at the side, the two walked over and prepared to properly persuade Brett. "Brett." Brett stood straight and shouted out respectfully, "Subordinate pays his respects to the 2 madams." The 2 women were speechless towards Yi Hua's nickname. To actually want his subordinate to call him Your Honor, he is too good at acting cool. In the future, I will have to call him Act Tough King Yi. Brett, let's sit down and have a chat. Without even thinking, Brett kneeled down and said respectfully, Madams, subordinate knows the reason why you two came here. Subordinate will definitely not have any relations with Zhu Tian. Brett's firmness made Qingya and Donghuang Baiji feel helpless. They basically don't know how to persuade Brett. Brett, Zhu Tian actually came here to beg us before. Qingya pulled Brett up and said attentively. Donghuang Baiji, who was at the side, went into a daze. When did he come here? However, very quickly, Donghuang Baiji understood Qingya's intention. Brett lowered his head and remained silent. Qingya continued, although Zhu Tian lied to you, and we deeply despise him for this, you need to know that His Honor is also a swindler. The corner of Yi Hua's mouth, who was not far away, twitched. What Qingya said is right. Brett, look at me, I was abandoned by Yi Hua for 3 years, and yet, didn't we still reconcile with each other? Although he is full of lies, I am still willing to believe in him. Donghuang Baiji comforted Brett. However, Yi Hua was very gloomy. You two actually brought me out to talk about this matter. Isn't this a bit too sloppy? That's right, Yi Hua also lied to us about many things, and we have also quarreled with each other before. However, it is precisely because of this that we cherish the present even more. When Qingya thought back to the past, she truly sighed with emotion. Seeing that Brett's gaze was different, the two women stopped talking. Brett, think about it properly. In actuality, there are a lot of white lies. When Yi Hua heard what Qingya said, he agreed with what Qingya said. All of the white lies that I, the Supreme Overlord, have said are all white lies. Isn't it all because of you two foolish women? At the middle hall, Donghuang Li's petite figure was currently moving a chair that was even taller than herself. Chapter 527. Donghuang Li said with a look as if she was the boss. I am the boss of the buried love family, and you two are my left and right guards. How can you order the boss around? Yi Hong's mood was very good recently, and he said with a smile, It's precisely because you are the boss. You can just leave this kind of menial work to us left and right guards. Aya, Uncle Green, Uncle Red, you two are so long-winded. Hurry up and move the food. The food delivery is coming soon. Green and Red brothers felt helpless. Little Honor is still as cute as always. Following the departure of the two madams, the women began discussing about the deeper problems. This made Tang Wei and Sun Feng very gloomy, and they were unable to get a word in. Even Zi Shan was able to speak clearly and logically, and she had already left the group of living widows. Very quickly, the crayfish delivery arrived. The women began getting busy, and the men took the lead and sat at the table. If a wife isn't used to do work, what's the point of having a wife? After the women placed all the food on the table, they slowly sat down. They were very orderly and very well behaved. This made Yi Hua feel very gratified. As expected of my subordinates, their position in the family should be very high. After pouring a cup of wine, Yi Hua stood up. Following that, everyone raised their cups and stood up as well. Any one of the men present would be able to overturn the seas and rivers. Other than the blood demon, any one of the women present would be incomparably beautiful. This was a table full of big shots, and Yi Hua was the big shot among the big shots. Everyone, you have worked hard. Yi Hua swept his gaze across everyone and shouted out gravely. Your Honor, you have worked hard. This group of people simply cooperated well with each other, and they shouted out their slogan very well. Yi Hua nodded his head. Let us shout out our slogan one more time. When this sentence came out, everyone became stupefied. When did we have a slogan? Why didn't we know about it at all? We didn't have a slogan in the past either. The blood demon immediately shouted out, Your Honor shall live forever, unify the world. Everyone looked towards the blood demon. To be able to flatter to such an extent, this is also a skill. Qingya and Donghuang Baiji were both amused by the blood demon. Is this the legendary blood demon that is going to bring disaster to the world? He is actually a bootlicker. Daddy is invincible. Donghuang Li raised her wine cup and shouted out. It seems like His Honor really knows how to speak. His Honor's words are simple and clear. These 3 words are enough to set off His Honor's greatness. Everyone shouted in unison, Papa is invincible. Then they drank it in one gulp. The corner of Yi Hua's mouth twitched slightly, and Qing Yutong's face froze. Just now, I wasn't deaf, right? Puff. Everyone realized that they had said the wrong thing just now, and they all spat it out. I, the Supreme Overlord, have actually taken in so many sons and daughters today. Yi Hua was having a headache. Why don't all of my subordinates bring their brains with them? Actually, at the start, Lai Gu was the one who shouted out, and the moment his voice carried a rhythm, everyone followed along and shouted out. In the end, he called out the wrong name. Ha ha! Everyone couldn't help but laugh out loud, and Yi Hua shook his head helplessly. The intelligence of my subordinates is worrying. Dong Huangli was simply about to burst into laughter. All right, sit down. Fortunately, there are no outsiders here. Yi Hua said faintly. You guys really know how to call Daddy. It's fine if you call me Daddy, but if you call someone else Daddy, then don't admit that you are my subordinate, right? You guys are too brainless. Qing Ya and Dong Huang Baiji laughed to the point that tears were coming out of their eyes. My husband's subordinates are truly amusing. However, the atmosphere at the start was rather good. Amidst laughter, everyone was eating crayfish. What was worth noting was that all of the women were peeling crayfish for their men. They were completely copying Yi Hua. This is why like boss like subordinates. Retch. Dong Huang Baiji, who was peeling crayfish, suddenly let out a retch. Yi Hua wrinkled his brows and took a look, then asked with concern, "What's wrong?" "Oh, nothing much, I just feel a bit nauseous." Dong Huang Baiji smiled, then continued peeling crayfish for her husband and child. However, not long after, Dong Huang Baiji let out another retch, then hurriedly covered her retch and ran to the washroom at the back. Dong Huang Baiji's actions caused all of the women present to think of something. After waiting for a long time, Dong Huang Baiji walked back, and her complexion looked a bit lacking. "Baiji, you can't be pregnant, right?" Qing Ya asked seriously. Yi Hua didn't react to what Dong Huang Baiji meant. In actuality, Dong Huang Baiji had a reaction for the past few days. She also knew that she was pregnant, and she wanted to give her husband a surprise. Dong Huang Baiji revealed out a light smile, then stretched out her hand and rubbed onto her flat abdomen. "Yi Hua and I are going to have another child." After getting Dong Huang Baiji's affirmation, everyone became stupefied. Soon after, everyone stood up, moved their chairs away, then half knelt down and shouted out, "Congratulations, Your Honor! Congratulations, Your Honor! Congratulations! You are going to have a child." Yi Hua felt that his brain was a bit unable to process what was going on. He looked at Dong Huang Baiji stupidly, then looked at Dong Huang Baiji's abdomen. A faint bloodline aura was being emitted out from Dong Huang Baiji's abdomen. "Baiji, you are pregnant?" Yi Hua was extremely shocked. This was too sudden. I wasn't prepared in the slightest. Towards the issue of having children, Yi Hua had always placed a lot of importance on it. He hoped that his bloodline would flourish, the more the better. Dong Huang Baiji nodded her head happily. We are going to have our second child." "This is great." Yi Hua hugged onto Dong Huang Baiji and started circling around excitedly. All of Yi Hua's subordinates were also happy for his honor. The more children his honor has, the more stable his power will be. "This is great. Ali will have 2 little brother." Dong Huangli clapped her hands happily. "In the future, I will be the big sister, and I will be able to bring my little brothers out to have fun." Qing Ya was also happy for her husband. Back then, when Baiji gave birth to a child, Yi Hua wasn't by her side. This time, Yi Hua can finally be at ease to accompany Baiji. "Today, Your Honor is very happy. Give me another serving of crayfish." "Everyone." Yi Hua held onto his 2 wives' hands and was very happy. "They are the ones who have contributed greatly to the family. They are the ones who gave birth to my children and continued my bloodline." Right now, Yi Hua really wanted to celebrate with the world and let everyone feel the joy of his main body. In order to thank his 2 wives, Yi Hua unprecedentedly peeled crayfish for Qing Ya and Dong Huang Baiji to reward them. The crayfish feast ended in this kind of joyous atmosphere. On this night, for the first time, Yi Hua didn't make a move on Dong Huang Baiji. He just hugged onto Dong Huang Baiji and talked about some things that happened in the past. This kind of warmth made Dong Huang Baiji feel happiness. "I am finally pregnant with my second child." However, in the following month, Yihua found out that it wasn't a good thing for two women to get pregnant at the same time, because right now, they couldn't even touch each other. Qingya said that she was currently in the late stages of pregnancy, and thus, she shouldn't do that anymore. On the other hand, Donghuang Baiji said that she had just gotten pregnant, and thus, she shouldn't do any intense exercise. I, the Supreme Overlord, just want to say, is my child that weak? Do you think that he will die just like that? What kind of twisted logic was that? Chapter 528. As the organizer of this event, Voidless Realm leveled all of Ji family's ruins and built a temporary residence at the side of Ji family's ruins. Although the temporary residence wasn't a high-end 5-star hotel, the temporary residence was still a tavern. The temporary residence was built with wood, and most of the trees in the surroundings had already been chopped down. A large arena had been constructed in the center of the arena. It was at least the size of 4 basketball courts, and seats were arranged around the arena. Of course, the Empress would definitely be sitting in a different seat. She would be sitting on a separate platform, and there were also seats specially arranged for the winner. Although they were enemies, he still had to put on an act. He couldn't lose his magnanimity. Within Voidless Realm's Empress' personal bedroom, Yihua was currently leaning against a chair and silently smoking a cigarette while looking at the blue sky and white clouds. Of course, there was also the nagging of his 2 wives behind him. Although the martial arts competition had not yet begun, the people of the North and South had already fought a few times. Although there were no casualties, it was still unreasonable. You two should just speak less. It is extremely normal for men to fight each other. Yihua shook his head. To think that you two would want to interfere in this kind of matter, I really have to give it to you. Donghuang Baiji said tenderly, Yihua, go to the balcony and smoke. Qingya and I are both pregnant. All right, if the 2 of you get pregnant, you will be the boss. Yihua had already experienced it this month. Any random matter could involve the issue of the child. Furthermore, Qingya should be giving birth in another 2 months. Her stomach is already bulging out. Baiji, the 5 great families from the north and the 4 great families from the south have already arrived. Absolute Heaven is one of our own, so he is not counted. The people from the Ing family should also arrive today. Qingya muttered. Even now, there are still people who are standing outside and holding up banners to protest. Just who gave them the guts to do so? Donghuang Baiji rubbed onto her forehead. Southerners only want the longevity fruit, while the northern 4 influential families want the entire Voidless Realm. That's right. If we were to provoke a fight between the 2 sides, the situation would become even more out of control. Qingya said faintly. Yihua couldn't help but say, the 2 of you are really stupid after being pregnant. Baiji, what you have to do right now is to watch the competition, then give out the rewards and wait for some people to jump out. In these few days, don't bother about anything, don't do anything. Yihua's suggestion is not bad. We will bide our time for the next few days. Qingya felt that her husband's method was feasible. The reason why they were forcing the Empress like this was definitely because they wanted the Empress to step forward, but the Empress refused to step forward, causing them to be at their wits' end. That's the only way. Now that Donghuang Baiji had a child, she became even more careful. No matter what problem she had, she would always take the child into consideration. Thus, Donghuang Baiji couldn't be so carefree anymore. Yihua extinguished the cigarette but, Baiji, your current task is to let the competition continue as normal until the competition ends. As for the rest, leave it to me. Yihua, it has been hard on you. Donghuang Baiji felt that if Yihua wasn't by her side, she would be at a loss. It's good that you know that it has been hard on me. I let you guys have your way again. After finished speaking, Yihua walked out of the room. Qingya and Donghuang Baiji looked at each other and smiled. In actuality, it was rather interesting to see Yihua's distressed look. After arriving at another room, Yihua called Zhu Tian and Brett over. When the 2 of them appeared at the same time, Yihua could feel Brett's hostility, and Absolute Heaven's intention to reconcile with Brett. This Absolute Heaven, if he knew this would happen, why did he do it in the beginning? I called you here to ask about something. Brett and Absolute Heaven distanced themselves from each other, then half-kneeled onto the ground. Absolute Heaven was helpless as well, and thus, half-kneeled onto the ground as well. Subordinate pays respect to your honor. Everyone get up. Yi Hua stretched out his hand and lightly waved. Brett, is there any movement from your side? Did they sneak into the competition? Yi Hua asked. Reporting to your honor, Qing Tian and the others did not make any movements. Brett's reply caused Yi Hua to be a bit disappointed. On the contrary, I was hoping that Qing Tian and the others would appear and capture all of them at once. After all, the martial arts competition this time around is an event that will shake the entire North and South. Don't they want to come over and fish up some benefits? Brett, continue to keep an eye on them. If there is any big movement, immediately report to me. Yes. Then, subordinate will take my leave. Yi Hua took a look at Absolute Heaven, seemingly wanting to say, don't you have anything to say? Such a good opportunity. Absolute Heaven understood what his honor meant, and he said slowly, Brett. Absolute Heaven. His honor told you to come here to report your mission. Do not be rude in front of his honor. Brett shouted out gravely, not giving Absolute Heaven any face at all. Absolute Heaven was immediately left speechless. After doing such a shameful thing, I don't even have the confidence to speak anymore. Brett, you can leave first. Yi Hua waved his hand. Thank you, Your Honor. After finished speaking, Brett immediately disappeared. Yi Hua stood up then said lightly, if I were you, I would have directly pushed Brett down just now. Your Honor. Forget it. You have already become an indecisive and sickly cat. Tell me about the situation. What are those 4 aristocratic families planning to do? Absolute Heaven took a breath, adjusted his state of mind, then said respectfully, just like what Your Honor guessed, they are indeed planning to force the Emperor to abdicate. Their guts sure are big. Yi Hua snorted coldly. The 4 aristocratic families are planning to use all of the powers in the north to force the Emperor to abdicate. Subordinate believes that they will lose the competition this time around and hand over the greatest harvest to the southern aristocratic families, thereby infuriating the north. Yi Hua took out a stick of cigarette and lit it. This idea is not bad, this method is feasible. Your Honor, do you need subordinate to make any arrangements? Absolute Heaven asked. No need, you just need to do what you are supposed to do. The competition this time around is just a pretense. The process isn't important. The day when the competition ends will be the start of the show. Yi Hua really wanted that day to come sooner, because some people were already impatient to die. Don't you know that my woman cannot be provoked? I was even able to exterminate such a huge heaven's mansion, let alone this small aristocratic family. Subordinate understands. Go. Yes. What Yi Hua was thinking about right now was how they would play their cards during the competition that would end a few days later, and how he should play his cards. Of course, he couldn't use a trump card right from the start, because that would be too damaging to other people's confidence. He had to make them mistakenly think that they would win, and only then would they find out that they were just a bunch of useless salted fish. Right now, all of the inns around Ji family were filled with people, and there was even a 38th parallel. The powers in the north and the powers in the south. Whoever dares to cross the 38th parallel will immediately start fighting with each other. Chen Xuanzong, who was a demon emperor, was currently meeting with a woman, and the woman was Duan family's Empress Duan. Empress Duan, are you trying to drag me into a pit of fire? Chen Xuanzong looked at the woman in front of him. Although the woman was wearing a veil, Chen Xuanzong could still feel the cold aura coming from her. Chapter 529. Hearing Duan Ho's words, Chen Xuanzong laughed. Duan Ho, Chen Xuanzong, will become a family master sooner or later. There is no need for me to seek shortcuts. After laughing, Chen Xuanzong's face tensed up and said softly. Duan Ho frowned, and the face under the veil was a little moved. Chen Xuanzong, I saw that you have a bit of potential, that's why I came to invite you personally. Don't refuse a toast only to drink a forfeit. Duan Ho, I will tell you everything. I will not go against Voidless Realm. If anyone dares to disrespect Voidless Realm, don't blame me for being impolite. Chen Xuanzong wasn't someone to be trifled with. As a demon emperor, he had the dignity of a demon emperor. Knowing that Qingya was with the Empress, Chen Xuanzong naturally wouldn't help others to bully Qingya or Voidless Realm which Qingya was in. As long as Qingya was in trouble, he, Chen Xuanzong, would rush over to save her even if he had to sacrifice his life. Good. Very good. After this matter is settled, no one will be able to save your Chen family. Duan Ho snorted coldly. then turned around and left. This Chen Xuanzong is truly a reckless youngster. He really thinks that he is a rookie and is starting to get arrogant. Chen Xuanzong didn't care about Duan Ho's threat at all and seemed very calm. After Duan Ho left, Chen Xuanzong stood up and looked towards the Empress's bedroom. He wasn't looking at the Empress, but at the woman that he had always liked, Qingya. Even if Qingya is already pregnant with Long Outyan's child, I will not give up on Qingya. I will use this life to protect Qingya and not let her suffer any harm. No one is allowed to harm the woman that they like. In a row of inns in the south, in an unremarkable ordinary room, a youngster was currently sitting cross-legged on the bed. Both of his hands were placed on his knees and were emitting a faint golden light. After a long time, the youngster slowly opened his eyes and muttered, "Seems like I haven't swallowed enough. When will it end?" This youngster was Qi Shuwen, the student who saved the arowana. At that time, he still had some thoughts about Tang Wei. However, after the banquet incident, he didn't have the face to pursue her anymore and focused on swallowing all kinds of fishes in the sea. Moreover, he was doing quite well now. In the entire South, he was considered one of the more outstanding rising stars. This time, he had come to participate in the martial arts competition to train himself. If he could obtain a longevity fruit, that would be the best thing. He had heard that the longevity fruit not only had the effect of extending one's lifespan, but it could also raise one's cultivation to the next level. It was a treasure. Otherwise, why would the entire South be so crazy about it? Dong dong dong. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door. Qi Shuwen smiled and went to open the door. "Brother Qi, how do you feel?" The man standing outside was about the same age as Qi Shuwen. He looked a little rough, with a square face and sideburns. However, when he smiled, he gave off a very kind feeling. Qi Shuwen said with a laugh, "Comrade Xinba, are you teasing me again?" "Haha, Brother Qi really knows how to joke. How could I come here to tease you? I just came to see you." Xianba patted Qi Shuwen's shoulder and grinned, revealing a mouthful of white teeth. Qi Shuwen got to know Xianba at a banquet, and it might be because both of them didn't like that kind of scene, that's why they started chatting together. Furthermore, both of them were newly established families, so it would be good for them to take care of each other in an alliance. The two sat beside the round wooden table, and Qi Shuwen poured a cup of water for Xianba. Xianba had a smile on his face, but in his mind, he was having a conversation with an old grandpa. Could it be that this is the rumored old grandpa who always carries around with him? Indeed, this is the case. Even now, Xianba's memory was still fresh in his mind. He spent 10 RMB to buy a jade pendant at the antique market, and suddenly one night, the jade pendant shone brightly, and a person who called himself Crazy Grandpa appeared in his mind. Crazy Grandpa said that he would be able to turn Xianba into an unparalleled expert, and after Xianba became stronger, he would help Crazy Grandpa take revenge. This was simply like the plot of a novel, and Xianba didn't even have time to react. After getting along with Crazy Grandpa for a few years, this Crazy Grandpa was no different from his own grandpa. Furthermore, with the help of Crazy Grandpa, Xianba established his own family and became the family head. However, Crazy Grandpa said that this was just the beginning. "Xianba, you have to properly befriend this little brother in front of you. This person has the protection of a divine dragon, and in the future, he will become a strong ally of yours." Crazy Grandpa said faintly in Xianba's mind. "Crazy Grandpa, even if you didn't say this, I would still befriend Qi Shuwen. It isn't easy to befriend a good friend." Xianba sighed. After establishing his own family, only then did he realize that if there wasn't any benefits involved, there wouldn't be any friends at all. Crazy Grandpa let out a sigh. "Xianba, no matter what you do, you have to be cautious. I have seen too many things like this. Crazy Grandpa, if I have to be cautious even when making friends, it would really be very tiring." Xianba was relatively kind-hearted and pure, and this made Crazy Grandpa feel helpless. This kind of personality is really not easy to mingle with, and it is very easy to be cheated by others. Crazy Grandpa let out a sigh. "Do as you wish, during the martial arts competition this time around, you have to be extra careful. I feel that the drunkard has ulterior motives, and something big is going to happen." I understand." After finished speaking, the two of them ended their conversation. Of course, this conversation was only finished while they were drinking tea. Brother Qi, speaking of which, I am a bit excited. This place used to be the territory of the South's big shots. Xian Ba grinned. He was truly excited, and what he said wasn't a lie. Qi Shuwen appeared to be a bit indifferent as he said, "That's right, the annihilation of Ji family is also a mystery. The water in the south is very deep, Xian Ba, you have to be careful." Hearing such a reminder, Xian Ba expressed that he was very happy. This is what friends look out for each other. Brother Qi, the same goes for you. I heard that the martial arts competition this time around is different, and something might happen. Xian Ba was also a kind person. If other people are good to him, then he will be good to other people. That's right, Voidless Realm's way of doing things is breaking the precedent. I heard that the families and aristocratic families in the north are all making a huge fuss over this. I'm afraid that something might happen. Qi Shuwen was a bit worried. Towards those big shots, the current me is truly powerless. Perhaps in a few more years, I will be able to sit on the same level as them. Xian Ba drank the tea in one gulp, then said with a smile, "Brother Qi, you don't have to worry too much, our South's big shot, Ing family, will be coming today as well. Could it be that Voidless Realm is going to make a move against us?" That's true. Ing family is a very powerful existence. Qi Shuwen said with a light smile. Right now, I can only grow wretchedly. I cannot become cannon fodder. Xian Ba suddenly said in a low voice. Actually, being able to see the Empress's face, this trip was not made in vain. You brat. Qi Shuwen patted onto Xian Ba's shoulder with a smile. Chapter 530. Qi Shuwen smiled lightly and said, "The Empress of the North is indeed extremely beautiful. I should take a good look at this kind of woman." Look at your disappointed tone. Wait for a few decades when we rise up. At that time, we will stand at the peak and look at the world. How great would that be? Desire appeared in Xian Ba's eyes. He also wanted to obtain supreme power and make those people who looked down on him regret. Every man has ambition. If not, they wouldn't go and establish a family. Xian Ba was like this, and Qi Shuwen was even more so. Alright. This time, let's let the Northerners see our strength. Qi Shuwen's gaze became serious. It is time for me to display my strength in front of the world and let the entire cultivation world see. There is a small family in the south, and the family head is called Qi Shuwen. Alright. Let's work hard together and create a new era. The two tightly held onto each other's hands and looked at each other. At this time, there should be a BGM. Confirmed the look in their eyes. Right at this moment, a clamor sounded out from outside. Soon after, the two walked to the balcony outside, and a group of silver-armored warriors could be seen in the distance. They were holding onto a flag, and a big Ing word was printed on the flag. The uniform footsteps gradually became louder, giving off a strong aura. All of the family heads in the south looked at the Ing family that was gradually walking over, and their eyes flickered with excitement. This is the big shot of the south. Ing family. This is the first time that Ing family has appeared in front of the public, and as expected, their aura is extraordinary. Xian Ba looked at Ing family that was not far away, and his expression became stiff. This is the big shot of the south, Ing family? So impressive. That's right, even the guards around them might be stronger than us. Seeing such a scene, Qi Shuwen immediately felt a sense of defeat, but at the same time, it also motivated him to move forward. One day, I will also be able to enjoy the admiration of everyone like this. Ing family's people quickly stepped into the housing area, and cheers immediately rang out. That excited look on their faces made it seem as if they had seen a strong backing. In actuality, the entire South's family head was becoming younger. After all, those old family heads had all died in G family, which caused the South's family head to become younger, and the overall strength of the South's family head was declining. However, these young family heads would also become the mainstay of the South in the near future. It was just that this matter needed time to be polished. That is Ing family's family head. Xian Ba looked at the man who was riding on the beast and muttered, "It should be." Qi Shuwen said blankly. The person riding on the flame cloud cheetah was none other than Ing Jingshan. This time, his son, Ing Kongsher, came along as well, the man whose balls were stomped on by Qing Yutong and Yi Zizi. Commonly known as the wick to extinguish. 4 figures instantly appeared in front of the Ing family's army. The 4 people who came were the heads of the 4 great families of the south. Wu Shang, Diao Lang, He Tian, Murongji. We respectfully welcome the Ying clan's patriarch. The 4 of them knelt on one knee. As the heads of the aristocratic families knelt to welcome him, the other heads of the ordinary families also knelt to welcome him. Even Qi Shuwen and Xian Ba, who were standing on the balcony, did the same. After all, even the patriarchs of the aristocratic families had knelt down. So why wouldn't these little patriarchs kneel? He couldn't afford to wear the hat of disrespect. In the entire Ying family, only Ying Jingshan was riding on a mutated beast. Seeing this scene, Ying Kongsher, who was standing behind Ying Jingshan, was secretly delighted. He hadn't been out for a long time and had gotten used to the servants' respect at home. Now that he had finally followed his father outside, he was able to enjoy a different kind of pleasure. Moreover, ever since the skeleton and the woman left, the entire Ying family had been reborn. It was no different from before. Now that I am here, I can finally see the Empress. In my heart, the Empress is my fiancée. You mortals probably don't know about this yet, right? If you knew, you would definitely be envious of me. Ying Jingshan waved his hand, and a formless power lifted everyone up from the ground. This move of Ying Jingshan shocked all of the small family heads present. What a powerful man! Xian Ba mumbled. Qi Shuwen said in shock, to be able to casually materialize spiritual energy, as expected of Ying family's patriarch. Ying Jingshan's appearance greatly boosted the morale of all the powers in the south. After all, Voidless Realm's Empress was overseeing the north, and the south could only look forward to Ying Jingshan's arrival. Furthermore, Ying Jingshan was able to suppress all of the small family heads in an instant, causing them to worship Ying Jingshan endlessly. Ying Jingshan waved his hand, and the group walked towards the tallest tavern that was not far away from them. Although the tavern was the tallest, it was only 3 floors tall, and it was very different from the Empress's bedroom. Dong Huang Baiji was doing this on purpose to make Ying family look bad. This woman is someone who holds grudges. Ying family's group stopped at the side of the tavern, and the guards sealed off the entire tavern from inside out. The entire tavern looked very formal and dignified, causing people to not dare to have any fanciful thoughts. Ying Jingshan took a look at the tavern in front of him and didn't say anything. He didn't dare to have any requests either. In actuality, as long as there is a place to stay, it will be fine. As Ying Jingshan and the 4 big family heads walked into the tavern, the surrounding small family heads began to clamor. This voidless realm is truly going too far. To actually arrange such a place for our big shots to stay, they are looking down on us too much. That's right, that Empress is staying in such a high-class place, and for Ying family to stay in such a place, they are truly hateful. What can we do about this? Voidless Realm is the organizer of this event, and Ying family is only here to cheer us on. This Voidless Realm is truly hateful. My Empress is definitely being held hostage. If not, she wouldn't do such a thing. That's right, the Empress is so beautiful. How could she possibly do such a thing? Hearing this group of people talking about his fiancée, Ying Kongsher sneered in his heart. You bunch of trash. Are you even qualified to talk about my fiancé behind my back? How reckless! Xian Ba, who was standing on the balcony, asked curiously. That young man should be Ying family's son, right? He looks quite good. Xian Ba didn't know how to describe it. Cold and gloomy, Qi Shuwen said lightly. Xian Ba immediately covered Qi Shuwen's mouth. Lower your voice. Don't let anyone hear it. Otherwise, it's over. Qi Shuwen nodded. He didn't think too much just now and just said it casually. However, upon thinking of the consequences, Qi Shuwen's back felt a bit cold. I wonder what kind of crime it is to insult the son of Ying family. Looking at the arrogant look on Ying Kongsher's face, Qi Shuwen said in a low voice, Reincarnation is a skill. That's right, there are some people who are born with a golden stick in their mouth, and we have to go through unremitting hard work in order to be able to obtain the things that are within their reach. Xian Ba let out a sigh. I have trained bitterly in order to obtain my current situation, and other people. They really couldn't be compared. Qi Shuwen patted Xian Ba on the shoulder. Let's work hard, and maybe our children will enjoy the admiration of everyone. That's right. Work hard. Chapter 531. Within Ying Family Inn, There were only ordinary wooden chairs placed in the lobby, and all of the decorations in the lobby were extremely ordinary items. Even the teacups were made of wood. Jingshan sat on the main seat in the middle of the lobby, while the family heads of the 4 influential families sat below him. This was the first time they saw family's family head, and they were both excited and fearful at the same time. Kongsher stood beside his father and remained silent. The beard under his mouth was stuck to his face, but it was unable to conceal the unique gentleness that he had. Just perform well this time. Jingshan picked up the wooden teacup at the side and drank a mouthful of water, then said faintly. He didn't wish for the southern family to anger that terrifying his honor once again. Yes. The 4 family heads didn't dare to say anything else. To be able to see family's family head was already an incomparable honor. In actuality, Jingshan also didn't know what his honor meant, because he didn't give any orders regarding this matter. All right, you all can leave now, I'm tired. Jingshan waved his hand. He wasn't interested in talking about anything else, and the 4 family heads didn't dare to ask anything else either. After the 4 family heads left, Jingshan said faintly, "Be clear about your own position. Don't think about anything else. If you dare to anger his honor again, I will definitely kill you. In any case, I killed one myself." Kongsher's heart trembled as he hurriedly said, "I understand." "It's good that you understand." Jingshan snorted coldly, then walked upstairs. Kongsher pouted his mouth. "I'm already here. How can I not go and see my fiancée? Even if she isn't my fiancée now, she was my fiancée in the past. A few months ago, I was also the man who was going to marry the Empress. I didn't expect that the wick would explode. Those 2 damned women, I curse you 2 to be virgins for your entire life. Damn it, I can't even win against them, yet I'm not allowed to talk about it." After the 4 family heads left, they returned to their own residence. "Why do I feel that family doesn't want to cause trouble?" Marshal Saint said curiously. Diao Lang said in a low voice, "That's right, right now, Voidless Realm is being suppressed by the entire North. If they were to ally with the North and bring down Voidless Realm, out of the 3 big powers, only family would be left. Isn't this a great opportunity? Have you all forgotten about the battle between family and Voidless Realm a few months ago?" Murongji reminded. He Tian narrowed his eyes and said in a low voice, "Could it be that the family doesn't dare?" Murongji nodded his head. "Perhaps, family knows that it won't be easy to topple Voidless Realm, and thus, they chose not to participate in this matter. After all, that is Voidless Realm we are talking about. How can it be so easy to topple Voidless Realm?" Everyone nodded their heads. This giant's foundation was extremely huge. It wouldn't be easy to topple him. Let's get down to business. The martial sage heaved a sigh of relief, his expression heavy. Upon hearing the martial sage's words, the 3 family heads revealed nervous expressions. "Martial Saint, are you sure that Ji family's seal is an ancient divine artifact?" Diao Lang asked gravely. The martial saint took a deep breath and said in a low voice, "The 3 tycoons were appointed by the gods, and the 3 tycoons were protected by enchantments, and these enchantments were powerful ancient divine weapons. This isn't something that ancient divine weapons can compare to." After pausing for a moment, the martial saint continued, "Ji family's enchantment is still here, which means that the ancient divine weapon is still at a certain place in Ji family. As long as we find the correct location, we will be able to take out the ancient divine weapon, and with the ancient divine weapon, we will be able to replace Ji family and become the new big power." "Is what you said true?" Diao Lang asked. "If I didn't have a bit of confidence, I wouldn't have said it. After all, this is a huge matter, and it isn't something that a single person can do. This time, Voidless Realm opening the enchantment is an extremely rare opportunity." Greed flickered within the martial saint's eyes. Who doesn't want to become a big power? Especially after seeing family's glory today, I yearn for it even more. Obtaining an ancient divine weapon will allow one to become an aristocratic family. And obtaining an ancient divine weapon, that would allow one to become a big power. He Tian laughed lightly. "If the 4 of us obtain the ancient divine weapon, how are we going to split it?" "Split? Since our 4 clans have done such a thing, there is no need to talk about division. Only by the 4 of us as one will we be able to tide through this crisis together. After all, if we are together, we will have 4 ancient godly items," the martial sage said calmly. However, Murongji raised a question. If Voidless Realm and Ing family were to attack us at the same time, how are we supposed to deal with them? After all, Voidless Realm has a way to open this barrier. So we can only gamble that they won't do this. The martial sage swept his gaze over the three of them. Soon after, Yihua continued speaking. After this year's martial arts competition, whether or not Voidless Realm will still be a problem. That northern aristocratic family wishes for the Empress to be kicked off the stage. And if they succeed, what reason would Voidless Realm have to come and look for trouble with us? To think that the northern aristocratic family can open this barrier, that's more like a dream. Everyone nodded their heads upon hearing what Yihua said. However, the risk that Yihua said was too big. This was practically gambling with one's life. If one won the gamble, one would become invincible, and if one lost the gamble, he would die a tragic death. Seeing that the three of them were hesitating, the martial sage shook his head. They were too used to such a comfortable life. Even their drive had been worn down. Only the brave can become the best. The martial sage shouted out in a low voice. I need to awaken the drive in their hearts. I can't continue to be depressed like this. What a good opportunity this is. Seems like you all have lost your bravery in the past and are living a comfortable life right now. Forget it. There was nothing much to say to the martial sage. It is impossible for me to do this matter by myself. Only by working together will this matter be able to succeed. Diao Lang's gaze tensed up, then said faintly, I'm in. I'm in as well. He Tian said immediately. Murongji asked calmly, I want to ask after this matter is over, who among the four of us will be the family master of this big power? The martial sage stood up, then looked at the three of them and said, 1 round every 4 years. We will take turns. The three of them thought to themselves, is this kind of decision feasible or not? 1 round every 4 years. Which means that we will only be the family master once every 12 years. A vicious look appeared in the martial sage's eyes. There is another way. After the matter is settled, the 4 of us will have a duel. The one who survives in the end will be the family master of the big power. Hearing such a suggestion, the other 3 family masters inhaled a mouthful of cold air. After all, no one wants to be the family master of the big power every 12 years. If one wants to be the family master of the big power, then one wants to be the family master of the big power forever. Murongji said gravely, I agree with the latter. I agree as well. I agree as well. From the looks of it, the 4 family masters didn't want to take turns and agreed with the final method. All right then. Tonight, we will go and search for ancient godly equipment. If I remember correctly, Family Master Diao, your ancient godly equipment should be able to sense some special existences. Chapter 532. However, this ancient godly item was still of little value. It was not an attack-type item, but a support-type item. The martial saint summoned out his ancient godly item. This was a sharp arrow, and it was no different from an ordinary iron sword. It was able to confuse enemies, and no one would have expected that such a sharp arrow would be an ancient godly item. When the arrow appeared, the blue jade immediately emitted a faint glow, becoming weaker and stronger as it got closer. The martial sage put away his ancient godly item and said with a light smile, Everyone saw it, right? Everyone nodded. As long as they had this piece of blue jade, finding the ancient divine weapon shouldn't be a problem. He Tian suddenly asked, Look, why is the blue jade still lit up? Diao Lang didn't notice it at first, but after hearing He Tian's shout, he immediately looked at the blue jade in his hand. It was indeed emitting a faint blue light. What's going on? Diao Lang was confused. Murongji exclaimed, Could it be nearby? These words immediately made the few of them excited. Could it really be nearby? Wasn't it effortless to get it? Diao Lang was so excited that he stood up and looked at the blue jade in his hands. Look, the light is getting brighter and brighter. He Tian exclaimed. His face was flushed red, showing just how excited he was. The blue jade in Diao Lang's hand grew brighter and brighter until it illuminated the entire hall. Ah! Diao Lang cried out in pain, and he immediately threw away the blue jade in his hand. His palm was actually injured by his own ancient godly item. That was impossible. This was not an attack-type ancient godly item at all. Just the light it emitted had actually burned his hand. Diao Lang, what is going on? Martial Sage hastily asked. He Tian and Murongji recovered from their excitement and stared at the floating blue jade. The blue light it was emitting was a little dazzling. I also don't know. This has never happened before. Diao Lang exclaimed. Murongji muttered. Just now, when this piece of blue jade faced the ancient godly item, it only emitted a faint light. But now it was so bright. This place should be where the ancient divine weapon is hidden. Diao Lang shook his head. No. Even if it's an ancient divine artifact, it wouldn't light up like this. There should be something even more terrifying. Bang! A crisp sound suddenly rang out. The floating blue jade shattered just like that. The four of them were dumbfounded as they looked at the scattered fragments on the ground. This was an ancient godly item. How could it shatter so easily? Impossible. Especially Diao Lang, his face was filled with shock. This was his primordial godly item. Ha! Without the ancient godly item, he wouldn't be able to be the patriarch of an aristocratic family anymore. This wasn't a problem of finding the ancient god artifact, but of not being able to keep their position as aristocratic families. An existence that is even more terrifying. The martial saint said in a low voice, and his eyes were flickering with fanaticism. An existence that is even more terrifying than an ancient godly equipment, what would that be? The martial saint was not the only one who felt this way. He Tian and Murongji were the same. If they could get their hands on something even more powerful than an ancient divine weapon, the winner was nothing. What does Voidless Realm count as? And this thing was not far from them. This thought was true. The rings on Qingya and Dong Huang Baiji's hands, as well as the necklace on Dong Huang Li's wrist. How could this primordial godly item withstand this kind of aura? It did not even last for a moment before it exploded. What do we do now? Is there any way to find the exact location of the primordial godly item? He Tian asked anxiously. He wished that he could obtain the primordial godly item right now and letting family and Voidless Realm take a look at it. The entire cultivation world will kneel down and tremble under my feet. Ha ha ha. The martial saint said gravely, everyone, try sensing it and see if it is useful or not. Only when one's strength reached a certain realm would one be able to sense the primordial godly item. We are still too weak. We are completely unable to sense anything at all, not even a single strand of hair. Diao Lang was in despair. This is the same as suffering a double loss. I didn't find the primordial godly item. I didn't find that terrifying thing, and my primordial godly item shattered. It was broken. Just like my heart, it shattered. Diao Lang sat on the wooden chair with a painful look on his face. A second ago he was still excited, but the next second, he was crushed by the cruel reality. It's all your fault. After resting for a very long time, Diao Lang was still unable to take it anymore. Immediately, he stood up and started cursing. He Tian and Murongji hurriedly said, we didn't ask you to take it out, the martial saint asked you to take it out. As expected, when something happens, all kinds of excuses are made. Martial saint, compensate me. Diao Lang let out a shrill roar. This matter concerns the entire Diao family. If Ying family were to find out about this, the Diao family's title as an aristocratic family would be removed, and the Diao family would be reduced to a third-rate family. This was a fact that Diao Lang couldn't accept. However, why is his tone sounding like that of a 3-year-old child? It's as if someone broke his thing and then shouted for him to compensate, and the only thing missing was to call his parents over to help him. The martial saint didn't know how to reply to Diao Lang. Encountering something like this is indeed very hurtful. No matter how useless the primordial godly item is, it is still an primordial godly item, and it is one of the standards of an aristocratic family. Diao Lang calmed down. The martial saint could only calm Diao Lang down first, and not let him do anything extreme. If this matter were to be reported to Ying family, he would be done for. Diao Lang let out a wild laugh. Martial saint, how am I supposed to calm down? Right now, my primordial godly item is gone. Not yours. If you have the guts, you can shatter it as well. Diao Lang, even if I wanted to, I wouldn't be able to shatter it. The martial saint sighed helplessly. However, what the martial saint said was too much of a blow to Diao Lang. Diao Lang was angered to the point that he directly punched out. Upon seeing that, He Tian and Murongji immediately pulled the furious Diao Lang away. It really isn't suitable for us to fight here, and Ying family is not far away from us. After all, it is normal for us to fight with the north, but for the south to have internal strife, and furthermore, it is an aristocratic family. It would be very shameful if word of it were to spread out. Diao Lang, don't get agitated. Only the three of us know about this matter. No one else knows about it. The martial saint immediately persuaded. Who knows what this Diao Lang would do if he is angered? Hearing what the martial saint said, Diao Lang calmed down a bit. As long as they don't say anything, no one else will know about this matter, and I am still one of the 4 aristocratic families in the south. However, the current Diao Lang was completely unaware that his weakness had already been found out by them, and in the future, he might even be threatened by them. Seeing that Diao Lang calmed down a bit, He Tian and Murongji loosened their grip on Diao Lang. The martial saint let out a breath, then said gravely, "We have to find the primordial godly item, and we also have to find the primordial godly item that is even more powerful than the primordial godly item." That's right, we only have 3 days left. We have to think of a way to find it. He Tian also wanted to obtain the primordial item that was even more powerful than the primordial godly item. Right now, what else could Diao Lang do? Chapter 533. Night fell. Qi Shuwen sat cross-legged on the bed and breathed deeply. After that, he opened his eyes. Sighing, Qi Shuwen got up and poured himself a cup of water. After that, he walked to the balcony. The competition will begin tomorrow. I have to make thorough preparations. Just as Qi Shuwen was pondering, he suddenly saw 4 black figures scuttling out and flying towards the forest not far away. Four black figures to appear so late at night. Qi Shuwen was a little suspicious. After struggling in his heart, Qi Shuwen decided to follow them to see what was going on. Humans are curious and Qi Shuwen was no exception. Qi Shuwen sealed his aura and followed behind them. Because he did not know who they were, he was extremely careful. These 4 figures were the martial sage and the others. They had snuck out while everyone was asleep to search for the ancient god artifact. Even though they did not know where to start, they still wanted to get to the bottom of it. They were unwilling, especially Diao Lang, who was even more unwilling. The 4 people wearing black clothes landed on the ground. Diao Lang asked in a low voice, "How do we find it?" Martial Sage summoned his ancient godly tool and said indifferently, "We can only try our luck. Let's hope that there is a reaction between ancient godly tools and ancient godly tools. He Tian, Murongji, take out your ancient godly tools and try it out." The 2 of them nodded their heads and summoned their ancient godly tools at the same time. The jade flute in He Tian's hand was crystal clear. It should be a musical attack. In Murongji's hand was a long orange whip. There were tiny thorns on the whip. However, this whip was different from the others. It was a little thick. Coupled with the tiny thorns, it looked a little interesting. Qi Shuwen, who was hiding far away, was startled. Although the aura emitted by the weapon was weak, Qi Shuwen could still feel it. Is this an ancient godly tool? As expected, it is so powerful. These 4 should be the patriarchs of the 4 great families in the south. What are they doing in this dark forest instead of sleeping in the middle of the night? Let's take a look first. If they do something bad later on, I will have to kill them to silence them. 3 ancient godly tools floated in the air. Martial Sage and the others carefully sensed the information transmitted by the ancient godly tools. Unfortunately, they did not discover anything. Let's walk around and take a look. Martial Sage said in a low voice. If this move was useless, they would not be able to find it. No one said anything. They could only try their luck. Qi Shuwen, who was at the back, followed them sneakily, and his heartbeat quickened a bit, thinking to himself that these 4 people might be looking for something. Something that the 4 great family patriarchs were searching for was definitely not something ordinary. However, on the treetop, there was a little cat squatting, its eyes emitting traces of cold light. Absolute Heaven was in charge of the security issue this time, ensuring that everything would end smoothly. After squatting for a few nights, there were no problems, but on this night, there was still a problem. The people who came were from the 4 great aristocratic families of the south, and behind them was a sneaky little guy who seemed to be looking for something. Zhu Tian didn't report this matter to Yi Hua. After all, it was already very late, and his honor should have already gone to sleep. Furthermore, this matter wasn't a big deal. However, What made Zhu Tian curious was what they were looking for. They even used an ancient godly item to search for it. Interesting. Zhu Tian slowly closed his eyes, and his consciousness immediately enveloped the entire Ji family. Sure enough, there was a discovery. There was only one thing that wasn't in the house. From the looks of it, they should be looking for this item. Absolute Heaven's figure disappeared from the treetops, reappearing beneath a large tree. It should be hidden beneath this large tree. Zhu Tian raised his hand and looked at his claws, then lightly scratched the ground. Immediately, mud stuck onto his claws. Zhu Tian's cat face had a look of disgust, seemingly about to vomit. Using both of his claws, Zhu Tian immediately used the dog paddle style. Needless to say, his speed was quite fast. 100 meters underground, Zhu Tian finally obtained the ancient godly item. Zhu Tian immediately drilled out from the ground and stood on the treetop. Zhu Tian's spotlessly white fur was covered with mud, and his fur was black and yellow. Zhu Tian couldn't help but tremble, then looked towards the copper plate in his hand. This should be the item that is supporting the entire Ji family's barrier. However, this copper plate is a bit more powerful than the one in our hands. However, this copper plate is only used to set up a barrier, and has no other use. Suddenly, Zhu Tian seemed to have thought of something good, and he had no choice but to contact his honor. Yi Hua was currently lying down and sleeping. Just that, the person beside him wasn't his two wives, but Dong Huang Li. It wasn't easy for Dong Huang Li to finally be able to sleep together with her father. And right now, Dong Huang Li was lying on her father's chest and sleeping soundly. What's wrong? Yi Hua was woken up by Zhu Tian, and his tone was a bit unkind. Your honor, subordinate has disturbed your honor's rest. I hope that you can forgive me. You have already disturbed your honor. Just say it. Yi Hua slowly opened his eyes, then looked at his daughter who was lying on his chest and the saliva that was at the corner of Dong Huang Li's mouth. Dong Huang Baiji didn't have the experience of drooling, so why did Ali have it? Who did she inherit it from? Hee, how can I possibly drool when I am sleeping? That is definitely impossible. Zhu Tian reported the matter to Yi Hua, and after listening to it, Yi Hua went into deep thought. They are looking for Ji family's barrier. What is it for? Your honor, Voidless Realm and Ing family both have similar barriers. Based on this, wouldn't the person who obtains the barrier be able to become a big shot? Zhu Tian speculated. That is a bit possible. If an ancient godly item is the standard of an aristocratic family, then a barrier might be the standard of a big shot. Your honor, the barrier is in my hands. How should I deal with it? Zhu Tian asked respectfully. Yi Hua went into deep thought for a while, then said coldly, This time, I am afraid that half of the people in the north will be killed by Baiji, and the entire cultivation world will most likely fall into a depressed state. Since my initial goal has been achieved, it is time for me to nurture a new surprise. A new surprise? Zhu Tian didn't understand what his honor meant, and he was still a bit puzzled. That's right. Didn't you say that there is a sneaky youngster behind you? Give it to him. After hearing what Yi Hua said, Zhu Tian immediately understood. Subordinate obeys. Also, in the future you can make your own decisions when it comes to matters like this. Don't disturb me at night. Yi Hua instructed gravely. Subordinates have to make their own decisions, and shouldn't come and ask me about everything. Zhu Tian said guiltily. Subordinate is foolish. You are foolish enough. Yi Hua said faintly, then cut off the connection. Zhu Tian knew what his honor meant by foolish. I am indeed foolish when it comes to Brett. Letting out a breath, Zhu Tian looked at the copper plate in his claw, then lightly rubbed the button on the copper plate. All of a sudden, the barrier that was enveloping Ji family's sky began disappearing, and the spiritual energy fluctuation caused by the barrier was a bit big. Chapter 534. Right now, Qi Shuwen was also looking at the starry sky. That layer of blue barrier was currently slowly disintegrating, and it was very beautiful. At the same time that the barrier disappeared, it brought along a very strong spiritual pressure that shook the entire Ji family. A light sound rang out. Qi Shuwen wrinkled his brows. Looking at the copper plate that suddenly appeared beside his feet, he picked it up curiously. After that, he did not stay any longer and returned. The commotion was too big. People will definitely come later. The martial sage and the others also realized this and returned reluctantly. At this moment, Dong Huang Baiji woke up from her sleep and flew towards the sky while wearing a set of pajamas. At the same time, Ying Jingshan and Ying Kongsher also flew towards the sky. Meanwhile, Yi Hua, who was currently holding onto his daughter who was currently rubbing her eyes, stood beside the window and looked at the few people in the sky. "Your Majesty." With a smile on his face, Ying Jingshan cupped his hands as if he saw an old acquaintance. There was no blood feud between them at all. Ying Kongsher, who was at the back, gulped down his saliva. The Empress came out in a hurry, and she was only wearing a set of light silk pajamas. That arrogant figure of hers made everyone exclaim in admiration, especially that beautiful face of hers. It was truly indescribable. This woman was originally mine, and she was even going to have fun under my body. Just thinking about it makes me excited. The people from the north and south were all shaken and looked towards the sky. They felt that the broken barrier wasn't even as beautiful as the Empress. The Empress's figure was simply too beautiful. Just by taking a look at her figure, they already shamefully felt respect for her. Dong Huang Baiji responded, then no longer paid attention to Ying Jingshan. "Your Majesty, I'm afraid that the barrier protecting Ji family has been taken away by someone." Ying Jingshan stood in the sky with his hands behind his back. He did not seem to be angry at all, because he didn't dare to be angry. Dong Huang Baiji nodded her head. "The barrier has been taken away by someone. I'm afraid that an incident is going to happen. This empty big shot position is something that everyone covets. However, I feel that this matter is nothing to be afraid of. What do you think, Your Majesty?" Ying Jingshan laughed lightly. He wasn't worried at all. With the Supreme Overlord backing him up, what is there to be afraid of about the barrier being stolen? Even if a deity descends to the mortal world, there is no need to be nervous at all. Dong Huang Baiji snorted. "Of course." After saying so, she disappeared into the air. Everyone felt a wave of pity. They had already been here for a few days, and it wasn't easy for them to see the Empress's figure, but it was gone in less than a minute. They still hadn't had their fill yet. Ying Kongsher, who was at the back, seemed like he wanted to call out to Dong Huang Baiji. However, he was interrupted by Ying Jingshan's gaze. Ying Kongsher felt that it was a mistake for me to call my son out this time. At home, my son had agreed to my son's request, but the moment I came here, my son changed his mind. "What are you looking at? Go back!" Ying Jingshan shouted. Following the disappearance of the two giants, everyone began to discuss what was going on with the disappearing barrier. At this time, Qi Shuwen, who had rushed back, stood together with Xian Ba. They had just witnessed the Empress's figure together, and couldn't calm down for a long time. "I really have to thank the barrier for breaking. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to see Her Majesty in her pajamas. She's really beautiful. She's so beautiful that I can't help but feel intoxicated." Xian Ba sighed again and again. Qi Shuwen, who was at the side, nodded his head, expressing his agreement. The Empress's figure was indeed incomparably beautiful, and that faintly discernible temperament was even more astonishing. This kind of woman could only be found in the heavens. No, even in the heavens, this kind of woman wouldn't exist. Her beauty caused people to suffocate, and even their breathing became hurried. Xian Ba shook his head. It was better for him to not think about these unrealistic things. It would be fine as long as his eyes were satisfied. "Brother Qi, where did you go earlier?" "I went to the toilet," Qi Shuwen said with a light smile. "Sleep early. The martial arts competition will begin tomorrow. Good luck. And you too, good luck." The two of them walked towards their own room one after another. Qi Shuwen closed the door and even used his spiritual qi to reinforce the door. Soon after, Qi Shuwen took out the copper plate from his pocket. His gaze was filled with doubt. "This thing is so strange. How did it end up beside my feet?" Qi Shuwen held the copper plate in his hand and slowly inserted his spiritual qi into it. Puh! The moment he inserted his spiritual qi into the copper plate, Qi Shuwen felt a powerful pressure existing within the copper plate. In an instant, he suffered from a backlash and spurted out a mouthful of blood. However, Qi Shuwen didn't go and treat his wound. Instead, he looked at the copper plate in his hand with an excited expression. Disbelief. This is simply even more powerful than the ancient godly item in those patriarchs' hands. What exactly is this thing? Could it be that the thing that they were looking for was coincidentally obtained by me? That is very likely to be the case. A great responsibility has been bestowed upon me by the heavens. I, Qi Shuwen, finally have a day where I can make a name for myself. Meow, a cat's cry gave Qi Shuwen a fright. He immediately kept the copper plate, then looked towards the roof beam. A cat with a strange fur color could be seen standing there. Qi Shuwen let out a breath of relief. I didn't expect that I would be frightened by a cat. This is truly embarrassing. Not paying any attention to the cat on the roof beam, Qi Shuwen took out the copper plate again and observed. Meanwhile, on the other side, the patriarchs of the South's 4 influential families all had miserable expressions on their faces. Especially Diao Lang. His final hope was shattered. Seems like someone snatched the ancient godly item before us. Martial Saint said gravely. Murongji nodded his head. That's right. If not, it is impossible for the barrier to disappear just like that. What a pity. In the end, someone snatched the ancient godly item before us. Right now, we should be the only ones who know about it. He Tian shouted out gravely. Suddenly, the 3 of them looked towards Diao Lang at the same time and thought of a very serious question. What if Diao Lang's ancient godly item didn't break, and it was just a facade that he intentionally broke? Then, he secretly sent people to retrieve the ancient godly item, or perhaps even an even more terrifying existence. And all along, he had been acting. What a vicious man. What are you all looking at me for? Diao Lang questioned coldly. Murongji's gaze locked onto Diao Lang as he questioned. Diao Lang, where is your ancient godly item? Murongji. What do you mean by this? Diao Lang shouted out angrily. You still have the cheek to say that? Wasn't it your own ancient godly item that broke? Murongji sneered. Diao Lang, it seems like the 3 of us have been deceived by you. Your ancient godly item didn't break at all, and then you secretly sent people to retrieve it, while you were acting with us. Martial Saint and He Tian's gaze changed, and they even felt like they were going to make a move on Diao Lang. Snatching someone's treasure is equivalent to snatching someone's wife and daughter. After hearing what Murongji said, Diao Lang went into a daze for a moment. Soon after, Diao Lang laughed out loudly. The 3 of you actually doubted me? Who am I supposed to look for when my ancient godly item broke? Martial Saint's face was gloomy as he shouted out eerily. Diao Lang! If you hand it over right now, we will let bygones be bygones. If you don't hand it over right now, don't blame us for being impolite. The jade flute in He Tian's hand had already appeared, and Martial Saint's iron arrow was floating beside He Tian's ear as well. Chapter 535. Diao Lang. You are still acting. Only the 4 of us know about this. Why did the barrier disappear when we went out to look for it? It is obvious that you are afraid that we have other methods, so you attacked first to gain the upper hand. The Martial Saint's words received the agreement of the other 2 because it is too coincidental. The barrier disappeared just when they went out to look for it. I really don't have it. Diao Lang looked at the 3 of them with a pleading gaze. All of them have ancient godly items. If they attack him together, he will definitely die on the spot. He Tian persuaded, Diao Lang, if you take it out now, we can still let bygones be bygones. That's right. Take it out now. Take it out. Diao Lang's eyes were bloodshot as he roared. I really don't have it. The Martial Saint's gaze became serious. Looks like you are forcing us to use force. Seeing that the Martial Saint was about to make a move, Diao Lang was startled. There is no chance of winning at all. Right now, only by running out will he have a chance of survival. Diao Lang did not think anymore and turned around to run. Trying to run. The Martial Saint shouted coldly. The iron arrow floating in the air turned into a black light and attacked according to the Martial Saint's order. A sharp blade appeared in Diao Lang's hand as he turned around to run and blocked the arrow. Clang! The sharp blade in Diao Lang's hand was broken. However, he managed to block the attack and caused the iron arrow to deviate. The iron arrow flew past his face. However, the iron arrow turned around and launched a second attack. Diao Lang had already touched the wooden door and was just a tiny bit away from opening it. However, his leg was entangled. The yellow long whip in Murongji's hand was like a huge python as it entangled Diao Lang's leg. The thick and big whip head was like the head of a snake as it swayed. With a fling of his hand, Jiao Lang's body fell in the middle of the room. Run! The martial saint shouted angrily. Right now, the three of them can conclude that it was this Jiao Lang who sent people to take it. Otherwise, why would he be in such a hurry to run? The three of them surrounded Jiao Lang and their killing intent surged. Jiao Lang could feel the murderous aura from the three of them. There was no point in trying to explain himself now. The only thing he could do was to ask for help. Just as Jiao Lang was about to open his mouth and shout for help, Murongji's whip head directly drilled into Jiao Lang's mouth. The thick and big whip head filled Jiao Lang's mouth to the brim, and the whip itself had thorns. Jiao Lang's mouth was immediately severely damaged, and blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. The three of them looked at each other. This person definitely couldn't be left alive, because he knew too many secrets. After killing him, they would capture his clansmen and interrogate them one by one. With this plan, the martial saint did not show any mercy and controlled his ancient godly item. The iron arrow pierced through the air and pierced through Jiao Lang's head before returning to his hand. Jiao Lang could only feel the back of his head lighting up, and then he felt dizzy. These three bastards. Even if I become a ghost, I won't let you off. Jiao Lang fell to the ground. There was a bloody hole on his forehead, and blood was flowing out of it. His eyes were wide open in death. His corpse must be found, the martial saint said calmly. Murongji nodded his head. That's right, his subordinates are definitely panicking right now. Then, we have to send people to keep an eye on his subordinates and see which one of them is acting strangely. The three of them nodded their heads and came to a consensus. Meanwhile, this Jiao Lang could be said to have died unjustly. His ancient godly item was broken, and then he was suspected by three fools, and the three fools even killed him. Jiao family, one of the four great families in the south, died, and the cause of death, died unjustly. Meanwhile, outside, everyone was still in a state of excitement. They were excited because they saw the Empress's figure, and they didn't feel anything about the barrier suddenly disappearing. What does it have to do with us? Dawn dispelled the darkness of night, ushering in a brand new day. This day was also the first day of the martial arts competition. However, in the morning, Donghuang Baiji received a piece of bad news. Jiao family, one of the four great families in the south, died miserably in a small forest. Baiji, do you want me to go with you? Qingya asked with concern. Donghuang Baiji was already dressed neatly, and she shook her head. No need, Qingya, the most important thing right now is for you to properly take care of your pregnancy. In actuality, it is best for you to stay in Voidless Realm. I have Yihua with me. I am worried too, Qingya said with a gentle smile as she rubbed onto her big belly with both of her hands. I am looking forward to the arrival of my son. Who does my son look like? I heard that my son will look like my mother. That means that my son will definitely be a handsome boy. Right now, Yihua had become a stay-at-home father, and he was accompanying his daughter every single day. Dong Huangli was also very happy. I finally managed to snatch daddy over from mommy. Yihua, I am going out. Donghuang Baiji greeted her husband. Yihua nodded his head, and only then did Donghuang Baiji dare to walk out of the house. When the Empress walked out of the house, Voidless Realms guards were all around the house. Meanwhile, Donghuang Baiji sat on top of the imperial palanquin, displaying the demeanor of an empress. When the imperial palanquin passed by the streets in the north, the family heads only stretched their heads out to take a look. There was no cheering at all, and even the family heads of influential families did not come. From this, it could be seen that the current Voidless Realm had already been isolated by all of the powers in the north. However, when the Empress really appeared, they no longer dared to continue clamoring. Donghuang Baiji sat inside the imperial palanquin with her beautiful eyes closed. Perhaps, I really have to do as Yihua said. I have to use my iron fist to suppress everyone. When the imperial palanquin arrived at the streets in the south, cheers could be heard. When the imperial palanquin saw that the Empress had come over, they were simply too excited, as if the Empress was their big shot. As the organizer of the event this time, when such a murder happened, Donghuang Baiji had to come over and take a look. As expected of the Empress, this imperial palanquin is not an ordinary one. I can faintly feel that it is a spirit artifact. That's right. However, our big shot is also riding on a spirit beast, and they are more or less of the same level. But why do I feel that the Empress is even more awesome? Hee hee, You must be thinking that the Empress is more awesome, right? Everyone was discussing about the Empress, and some of them even tailed behind the imperial palanquin. When I get a closer look at the Empress, my life will be worth it. The imperial palanquin arrived at Ying family's residence and stopped. Under the service of a maid, Dong Huang Baiji appeared in front of everyone. Everyone held their breath as they looked at Voidless Realm's Empress, who was wearing a purple gown and a golden crown. The Empress is so imposing. Every single movement of hers is so charming, and even the movement of her hand is so perfect. Furthermore, when the Empress raised her foot and stepped on the ground, it seemed like she was itching to get rid of the dust on the ground and let the Empress step on her own body. That mysterious back view and that fair and jade-like neck really caused all of the male compatriots to stand up straight. Why did the heavens create such a woman? And furthermore, it is a woman that we are unable to obtain. Isn't this the same as suffocating us to death? As the Empress walked into the residence, everyone became disappointed. Chapter 536. The Empress's guards immediately looked towards the source of the voice. They actually dared to be so disrespectful towards the Empress. Soon after, more people started shouting, and more people started shouting at the same time. Dong Huang Baiji, who was inside the room, was able to hear the voice. They are really not afraid of me. They lack dignity. The shouts outside didn't seem to have any intention of stopping, and it seemed like they were mocking the Empress. Even Qi Shuwen and Xian Ba were shouting along with the shouts. Quiet! A cold shout immediately burst out from inside the room. This was not what Dong Huang Baiji said, but what Ying Jingshan shouted. A bunch of people who are not afraid of death actually dared to mock the wife of the Supreme Overlord. Are they tired of living? Following Ying Jingshan's shout, the outside indeed became quiet. Dong Huang Baiji sighed in her heart. A woman without deterrence. Who would be afraid of her? In everyone's eyes, I am a philanthropist, the kind of person who is easy to talk to, which is why I dared to mock her like this. Look at Ying Jingshan. Do they dare to do this? They clearly don't dare to do this. Therefore, what Yi Hua said is correct. I need a bloodbath to establish my might. I am actually not that easy to talk to. Dong Huang Baiji looked at the corpse that was placed in the center of the room and asked faintly, what happened? With an outsider present, Ying Jingshan naturally wouldn't be too low-key. He indifferently said, Empress, this Jiao Lang was discovered in the forest today. The wound on his forehead is fatal, and his oral cavity has also suffered a serious injury. His oral cavity is severely injured? That sounds really strange. Do you have any suspects? Dong Huang Baiji asked. The martial saint who was at the side cupped his hands and said, Empress, the barrier suddenly disappeared last night. I'm afraid that a powerful enemy appeared. Dong Huang Baiji sized up Diao Lang's body, then said slowly, this person's clothes are clean, and there isn't a single wound on his body. I'm afraid that he was ambushed by someone, or someone familiar with him. Furthermore, to be able to ambush an aristocratic family's family master, his strength cannot be underestimated. The hearts of the three sunk. This Empress's thoughts are so meticulous. It is truly scary. Dong Huang Baiji was a woman who accompanied Yi Hua to watch Detective Conan, and right now, she had a slight understanding of the situation. Ying Jingshan said, Empress, I suggest to strengthen the security to prevent similar things from happening. That's fine. This is the internal affairs of the South. This emperor will not interfere. Do as you see fit. Dong Huang Baiji said faintly. After that, she walked out of the tavern, sat on the imperial palanquin, and walked towards the martial arts stage. Because the opening ceremony was about to begin. Looking at the Empress leaving, Ying Jingshan said gravely, the three of you, investigate this matter thoroughly. Yes. The three of them answered in unison. When Ying Kongsher, who was standing at the side, saw the front of Her Majesty, he felt that it was really great. In his mind, he had already started to imagine the scene where Her Majesty would be tormented by me, and the scene where Her Majesty would beg for forgiveness from me. Ying Kongsher was intoxicated. At 8 in the morning, everyone walked into the martial arts arena one after another. The south side was on the left, and the north side was on the right. There was a huge martial arts arena in the middle. Meanwhile, on the high platform directly opposite them, that was the grandstand for the Empress. Slightly below them was the winner's grandstand, and it was clear that there was a difference in status. On the other hand, Jingshan didn't mind at all. After all, this was the truth. Below the two of them were the people from the aristocratic families of both sides. Dongfang Yuaner, who rarely appeared on the stage, appeared on the stage. Looking at the number of people, the north side had the advantage. After all, a family head of an aristocratic family had died last night, and furthermore, the family head did not manage to find any ancient godly item, and thus, the family head of the south side should be eliminated. Although the distance between the north and the south side was very far, the cursing did not stop at all. This doesn't look like a martial arts competition at all. This is clearly a gathering of hoodlums. Jingshan sat down and did not say anything. This kind of situation naturally has to be suppressed by your wife, and Kongshe really wants to help the empress vent her anger by killing a few people to vent his anger. The people from the aristocratic families of the north had an appearance of watching a good show. The uglier the empress is, the more advantageous it is for them. Dong Huang Baiji, who had not made a move the entire time, suddenly stood up. In actuality, she was still angry, but now was not the time to be angry. All of you quiet down. I have a few things to announce. Dong Huang Baiji didn't open her mouth to scold anyone. Rather, she wanted to announce a few things. The family heads of the south gave face to Dong Huang Baiji, and all of them stopped their scolding. However, some of the old foxes from the north were still speaking in a low voice. They didn't put the empress in their eyes at all. In their hearts, they were thinking, is the empress going to start a massacre? She is a female bodhisattva who saves people from suffering, and back then, she even went to the south to save people. Dong Huang Baiji didn't pay attention to those people from the north and continued, I have been in charge of the north for several years, and I have a daughter. The daughter's name is Dong Huang Li. Along with Dong Huang Baiji stopping speaking, little Ali's figure walked towards her mother and stood beside her mother. This was the first time that Dong Huang Baiji announced Dong Huang Li's identity to the outside world, and also admitted that she had already been a mother for several years. Rumors are just rumors, but now that I have seen it with my own eyes and heard it with my own eyes, everyone was extremely shocked. I didn't expect that the empress really has a daughter, and from the looks of it, the empress should already be 3 to 4 years old, right? I didn't expect that the empress has already been taken advantage of by someone for so many years. Everyone thought that the empress's daughter was the symbol of purity, disappointment. Yi Xiao and the others from the aristocratic families of the north revealed a sneer on their faces. For the empress to choose this kind of time to announce this kind of thing, isn't she shooting herself in the foot? This will only anger all of the powers in the north more and more. Dong Huang Li appeared very polite as she shouted out, Hello everyone, my name is Dong Huang Li. Everyone became deathly silent. This caused Dong Huang Li to feel a bit hurt. It seems like I am not liked by everyone. Dong Huang Baiji rubbed onto her daughter's head. One needs to experience the joys and sorrows of life to grow up. Next is my good sister, Qingya. Qingya, who was standing at the back, had a startled look on her face. Why is Baiji asking me to go out as well? Yihua laughed. Empress, you are preparing to introduce your entire family to the world. But Qingya was a bit embarrassed. After all, I am holding on to a big belly. All right, what are you afraid of? Just treat it as you pulling hatred towards Baiji. Yihua retracted his smile and said faintly. The reason why Dong Huang Baiji is doing this is to anger those who are preparing to rebel against her, or those who are wavering. Qingya rolled her eyes at Yihua, then closed her eyes and said, Kiss me, then I will have the guts to walk out. This little woman, I am becoming more and more fond of her. Yihua stretched out his hand and lifted Qingya's chin, then lightly kissed her. All right, now that you have received my kiss, hurry up and go. Look at how smug you are. Qingya laughed helplessly. Soon after, her expression tensed up as she walked out from the back of the stage. Chapter 537. He instantly thought of the Empress saving the South that time. Wasn't there a heroine by his side? Could it be her? Why is she still pregnant? From the looks of it, she is going to give birth soon. In the South, Cloud Sect Master Wu Hao still remembered Qingya. That heroine saved his life that day. I had always wanted to repay Qingya, but I really couldn't think of how to repay Qingya. Originally, I wanted to repay Qingya with my body, but when I saw Qingya walking out with a big belly, why do I feel so much pain in my heart, as if someone stabbed me a few times? Chen Xuanzong, who was in the north, also felt the same way. He stared blankly at Qingya, who walked out. I haven't seen her for a few months, and her belly is already so big. I'm angry. I'm so angry. Qingya swept her gaze across everyone. She wasn't weak at all. Qingya was a woman who had seen the world. When she was in Blue Blaze Planet, the Federation's president had sent out a powerful army, but they were still trampled by her man, and in the end, they ran away with their tails between their legs. But right now, all of this was nothing at all. It was nothing to be afraid of. Just that, Dong Huang Baiji's following words shocked everyone, to the point that their jaws almost dislocated. Dong Huang Baiji could be seen holding onto Qingya's hand and saying faintly, "Not only are we good sisters, we also have the same husband." The entire place became deathly silent. The Empress and this extremely beautiful woman are serving the same husband. How is this possible? Just hugging one of them is already a great merit, let alone two. Furthermore, both of these women are going to give birth to that man's child. This should be the first time Ying Kongsher saw Qingya, and he was deeply attracted by Qingya's beauty. These two women are simply incomparable, if it's possible. Although Ying Kongsher had extinguished the lamp, it didn't stop him from fantasizing about all kinds of things. Hearing this, Ying Jingshan was very calm. He already knew about it. However, all of the aristocratic families were stupefied. They really didn't expect that the Empress would actually be willing to serve the same husband with another woman. After all, the Empress's identity is very noble. How is it possible for her to do this? Everyone felt deeply disappointed, and the Empress's position in their hearts plummeted. The few people from the northern aristocratic families were incomparably happy. The Empress was simply digging her own grave by doing this, digging a hole to bury herself. The sect leader of the Cloud sect, Wu Hao, was in complete disbelief. He clasped a hand over his forehead. The heroine was actually serving the same man as the Empress? Heavens! Just what kind of man is he, to actually be this lucky, to be able to obtain their favor? This is too fake. As for Chen Xuanzong, he felt unwell all over. I didn't expect that Long Outyen not only harmed Qingya, he even harmed the Empress. How is this possible? With Long Outyen's foolish appearance, how could he obtain the Empress's favor? Who are you trying to fool? In any case, I, Chen Xuanzong, refuse to believe that all of this is fake. All of it is fake. Qingya is mine, Dong Huang Baiji continued. Next, let's welcome my husband, Yi Hua. Yi Hua, who was standing behind the platform, was currently doing his hair. A mirror appeared in front of Yi Hua's eyes, and Yi Hua wiped some hair wax onto his head. Then, he carefully took care of it, making sure that when a gust of wind blew past, the hairstyle would not change. Hearing his beloved wife shout, Yi Hua was currently considering what steps he should use to walk out of the room. Recently, he had seen a few sets of footwork that were not bad. All of them had their own background music, and they walked with the wind. However, that kind of footwork was not suitable for the main body. It was too frivolous. The main body walked the path of steady footwork. Forget it, I'll just do it the same way as before. Yi Hua's expression tensed up. He took out the mirror once again and took a look at it, making sure that his hairstyle was not messed up. Yi Hua could be seen walking out of the room with steady footwork. His pair of eyes were very deep, causing others to not dare to look at him directly. Could this be the legendary death gaze? That face that seemed as if it was carved by a knife, that tall nose bridge, those sharp eyebrows, those sharp eyes, and that tall and straight body that seemed to be able to hold up the heavens. As expected of a real man. Furthermore, a faint aura was being emitted out from his body. Although it wasn't dense, it caused others to not dare to have any strange thoughts. Just by standing there, I can already feel that they are quite compatible. How can the appearance of this family of four be so high? Looking at the man who suddenly appeared, Wu Hao immediately felt a sense of inferiority. That man's appearance is able to crush me, and that calm temperament of his is even more so. Why is there such a perfect man, to the point where I am unable to have any thoughts of fighting over him? Meanwhile, Chen Xuanzong was dumbstruck. When did Long Outyen become like this? He even has a name now. F***ck. This damned Long Outyen is indeed cunning. Do you think that I, the Demon Emperor, would not recognize you just because you changed your appearance and name? You actually turned into such a beautiful man, and your skin is even better than mine. No wonder you were able to subdue the Empress and Qingya, Long out yen. You are simply fucking shameless. I, the Demon Emperor, will definitely expose your true appearance and let Qingya see your true appearance. Wow, the Empress's husband is so handsome. That's right, metallographic. He is like a tiger and a dragon. A pear blossom suppresses a begonia, a jade tree that surpasses Panan. No wonder the Empress and Qingya would fall in love with him. If it was me, I would also say the same thing. What a perfect man. Jingshan swallowed his saliva. Should I salute? Forget it. If I were to salute, I reckon that my head would be removed from my body. His honor still likes to be like this. He is so awesome. Meanwhile, when Kongsher saw Yi Hua, he clenched his teeth tightly. This is the demon who snatched away my fiancé and killed a lot of people from Ying family. I will definitely take revenge for this demon. When the time comes, I will snatch away my fiancé. Even if she had given birth to a child before, I wouldn't mind at all. In actuality, Yi Hua really wanted to say a few words, such as, "Do you all want to die? To even dare to touch my woman, with just a snap of my fingers, I will turn all of you into ashes." However, this time, this is Dong Huang Baiji's home ground, and I am only here to accompany her. It is fine for me to just watch my wife act cool. I don't want to snatch away my wife's limelight. From the looks of it, this personality of mine has also been learned by them. I like to create big scenes. However, this scene is still considered big. Although the scene isn't big, Yi Hua still admired everyone's gazes, which were filled with astonishment and puzzlement. When the martial arts competition ends, you all will know what is called cruelty. I didn't expect that Her Majesty and heroine Qingya would be serving the same husband. I don't know why, but my heart is in so much pain. Xian Ba said while holding on to his chest. Qi Shuwen looked at Yi Hua and felt that he had seen Yi Hua before, but he was unable to remember where he had seen Yi Hua before. However, to be able to have a woman like Yi Hua's strength is definitely not ordinary. Chapter 538. Xian Ba suddenly revealed a yearning expression. He clenched his fists tightly and whispered, "That's right. I have to work hard in my cultivation so that I can become a man like him in the future." Some of the southern clan leaders or the newly established clan leaders all had fiery gazes. This was a real man. He had women like the Empress and heroine, and they were even willing to give birth to his children. Thinking about that exciting process, it was definitely a man's ultimate dream. In order to achieve such an ultimate dream, we should also cultivate hard and strive to achieve our goal as soon as possible. If Yi Hua, who was standing on the spectator stand, were to know what these people were thinking, he would definitely strike them down mercilessly. I'm afraid you won't be able to cultivate my strength in this lifetime. Other than envy and despair, you will have nothing left. Also, these two women only moved their mouths and then went to bed with me. This has absolutely nothing to do with strength. Yi Hua didn't say these words out loud. However, on the day that the martial arts competition ended, I will be able to say it out loud. That day will be the day that I, the Supreme Overlord, and my wives will go crazy. I am truly looking forward to it. The dense smell of blood was gradually approaching, and a trace of a smile appeared on the corner of Yi Hua's mouth. However, no one noticed that Yi Hua was smiling. Isn't this man the boss of Long and City's leisure bar? A certain family head in the south seemed to have thought of something and asked. The Empress of the North is actually married to the boss of a bar. This was too nonsensical. The audience immediately went into an uproar, and intense discussions broke out. But I heard that the owner of this bar is very mysterious. That's right, that's right. I heard that the terrifying Black Robe once went to that bar. There's such a thing? A few months ago during the ancient godly equipment snatching battle, that black-robed man suppressed everyone and even hugged Yun's sect master, Sun Fong. Sigh, I don't know what happened to the southern girl, Sun Fong. Perhaps she has already been eaten by that terrifying Black Robe. That's right, even if he didn't get eaten, he would definitely be tortured by the Black Robe, so cruel. Right now, Death Mage really wanted to come out and explain. Just who the F***ck is this scary? It is obviously this ugly woman who bullies people just because she has a piece of meat on her body, and I, the dignified Black Robe, have to mop the floor at home every day and become a slave. You guys tell me. Just who is the one who is abusing who? What do you think is the relationship between this man and Black Robe? Friends? Superior and subordinate? Master and servant? Such discussions immediately began. It was impossible for them to be friends. How could they be friends? Such a terrifying existence did not need friends at all. If they weren't superior and subordinate, then they were master and servant. However, everyone thought that this man had curried favor with Black Robe, and that was how he had obtained the appreciation of the Empress and the heroine. That made sense. Yihua didn't say anything after hearing what Yihua said. You all don't even know who my subordinates are. If I were to allow them to appear one by one, you all would completely lose your confidence and become ants under the heavens. Yihua wouldn't sit on the main seat. After all, she was his wife, and letting his wife act cool was what a man should do. Yihua and Qingye sat behind Donghuang Baizhi. Yihua was still sitting in his usual posture. The sitting posture of the big boss. Then, he took out a cigarette and lit it up. The crisp sound of a lighter resounded throughout the venue. Everyone looked at Yihua, who was lighting up his cigarette. That slightly squinting eyes, that slowly exhaling smoke. Why is it so? So imposing? This man is so handsome even when he is smoking. This man is simply invincible. To be able to blend the smoking posture into that sitting posture without any discomfort. I even feel that the scene is so beautiful. The cyan-colored smoke caused that man's face to become blurry, giving off an even more mysterious color. That deep gaze of his seems so melancholic. So smoking can be done like this. I have gained a lot of knowledge today. At this very moment, even those who don't smoke also wanted to smoke a cigarette. Then, a strange phenomenon was created. The entire martial arts stage was emitting out a cyan smoke. Everyone was holding on to a cigarette. It was such a spectacular scene. When Yihua saw this scene, he couldn't help but laugh. These humans, they just love to follow the trend and create momentum. Meanwhile, Qingye and Donghuang Baizhi had a helpless look on their faces. What can they do when they meet a smoking addict husband? It must be said that the current Yihua was very much like a leader. From the moment he walked out to the moment he sat down, he did not say a single word. Yet, he was able to drive the rhythm of the entire audience. I didn't waste my time for the past 5 years, and I didn't watch the movie, Calabash Brothers Saving Grandpa, blindly. Martial arts competitions start. Following Donghuang Baizhi's shout, Voidless Realms Yuquan appeared in the air. This competition will be conducted by drawing lots. It will be a confrontation between the North and South. Life and death are up to the heavens. Of course, you can also admit defeat. Yuquan's words startled everyone. Life and death were up to the heavens. Shouldn't he stop there? This is the normal routine. Why would Voidless Realms set such a rule this time? Everyone looked very serious. A confrontation between the North and the South? He could die. And he could even admit defeat. Wasn't this reminding everyone that admitting defeat was extremely shameful? After all, it was a battle between the North and the South. If they admitted defeat, what would happen after the competition? If he went out, he wouldn't even be able to raise his head. All the clan heads in the North looked towards the Empress on the high platform. How scheming! He wanted to kill with a borrowed knife and use the Southerners to consolidate his own strength. We have truly underestimated this Empress. The aristocratic families in the North had grave expressions on their faces. This move of the Empress caught them unprepared. There are at least 1,000+ people on the scene. If this competition continues, wouldn't there be only half of them left? If there were a few more rounds, wouldn't there be no more? Could it be that the Empress and Ying family are planning to do a big reshuffle? Are they planning to make use of this competition? None of the people on the scene were fools. Even fools wouldn't be able to become a family head. They also realized this problem. If the Empress doesn't admit defeat, only one out of the two will be able to survive. If this continues, how many people will be able to walk out of this competition? Unless they admit defeat. Yihua was a bit surprised. I didn't expect that my woman would actually do such a thing. She never told me about this before. This is a bit formidable. Looking at the fight between the North and the South, and the fight was done openly, Yihua laughed lightly. My original goal has been achieved. Furthermore, it was achieved by my wife. This is very unexpected. Donghuang Baizhi's way of doing things made Yihua feel very gratified. If they don't put you in their eyes, then let everyone else see it. The authority of the Empress is not to be touched by anyone. There will only be one result for those who touch it. Death. Yu Quan paused for a while, then continued, the number 1 in this competition. The number 1 will receive 100 longevity fruits. Number 2, 70. Number 3, 50. Number 4 to number 10 will receive 1 participation prize. The audience went into an uproar once again. The number 1 actually received 100 longevity fruits. Furthermore, the number 2 and number 3 also received that many longevity fruits. Chapter 539. The family head's expression was very unsightly. In the past, they were only given a total of 100 fruits, and this time, the champion would get a total of 100 fruits. If the Southerners were to take away the fruits, wouldn't that be forcing the Northerners to rebel? Just what is the Empress's intention? Such a reward made everyone's eyes become hot. Right now, I just want to get into the top 10, and it would be best if I can get into the top 3. With that many longevity fruits, I won't have to worry about my life anymore. Life is something that cannot be bought with anything, and now that it has appeared, how could anyone not be excited? Furthermore, the number of longevity fruits is so big, it is enough for me to live for a few lifetimes. Even if I have to fight to the death, I must get my hands on it. Dong Huang Baiji's scheme made everyone realize that this martial arts competition was not simple. However, in order to dispel their worries, she used the huge amount of longevity fruits to tempt them. From the looks of it, the effect was achieved. This scheme is too deep. Yihua didn't expect that Baiji would have such a scheme, and he was very happy in his heart. In actuality, Qingya and Dong Huang Baiji weren't stupid. In front of Yihua, they chose to act like stupid women to satisfy Yihua's male mentality. Ying Jingshan was also a bit surprised, but he thought that this was his honor's intention. He didn't have any doubts, and he didn't dare to have any doubts. The northern aristocratic families that were sitting below began discussing in low voices. This matter should be beneficial to us, Zhang Yuanzhou said in a low voice. 3 days later, we will unite everyone and overthrow the Empress's authority. Yi Shao nodded his head. That's right, the Empress's method will only anger the Northerners even more. But, you all didn't think of it. But didn't the Empress think of it? But why did she insist on going her own way? Chu, he said gravely. Duanho laughed lightly, then said in a low voice. The Empress wants to borrow the hands of the South to get rid of some of the northern powers that are against her. This way, she will be able to reduce the pressure on the North, and our coercion will not be that threatening. After hearing that, Yi Shao and Zhang Yuanzhou nodded their heads. What the Empress said makes sense. Meanwhile, Chu he was very vexed. I don't want to participate in this at all. I feel that this matter is not that simple. On the other side, Qi Shuwen and Xian Ba were also discussing. Brother Qi, the number 1 position is obviously from those aristocratic families. The number 1 position is all decided internally. Xian Ba shook his head. It's basically impossible for those aristocratic families to get the number 1 position. The difference in strength is right here. Qi Shuwen felt that Xian Ba was right. How could they possibly get the first place? Xian Ba, don't be discouraged. Just treat it as learning experience. Qi Shuwen was consoling them, because he had already gained something from this trip. It was a super treasure, and once he stabilized his strength, he would become an overlord. Xian Ba could only comfort himself in this way. At this moment, the mad senior in Xian Ba's mind said calmly, Xian Ba, don't be disheartened. Although this longevity fruit is good, when your strength reaches the peak, you can easily obtain it. I understand, old Feng. A resolute look appeared in Xian Ba's eyes. He had to cultivate as hard as he could. Otherwise, he would be like a salted fish, unable to make a comeback. It wasn't just the two of them who were discussing this. Many people were also discussing the fairness of this competition. Some people even shouted that it was rigged. Yu Quan continued, Her Majesty the Empress has set up a rule to deal with the difference in strength. No one is allowed to use spiritual qi. Using spiritual qi means losing. The Southerners, who were generally weaker, were stunned for a moment. Then, they cheered loudly and shouted the slogan of the Queen's might. Meanwhile, the North, whose overall strength was powerful, was speechless. Was this Empress even someone from the North? To actually give benefits to the Southerners like this, where is the dignity of the North's big shots? Right now, some of the family heads who were hesitating all had thoughts of rebelling against the Empress. This is truly too disappointing. Dong Huang Baiji once again used a scheme to provoke the entire North, causing the anger of the North to burn even more vigorously. At that time, I will be able to see just how many people are prepared to rebel against me. The few aristocratic families in the North sneered. This time, it would be hard for the Empress to not step down from the throne, unless she plans to do something that angers both humans and gods. Angers both humans and gods? Have Yi Hua not done enough? For the entire imperial city of Heaven's Mansion to be massacred, not only would that angers both humans and gods, even the sky itself would be crying tears of blood. Therefore, in Yi Hua's eyes, this could at most be considered as a lesson, and it wasn't to the extent of angering both humans and gods. Meanwhile, the four family heads didn't expect that the kind Empress would suddenly turn evil. I reckon that 3 days later, even their intestines would turn green from regret. Empress is wise. Xianba shouted out loudly. The Empress who was on the stage was his goddess. Qi Shuwen also shouted out excitedly, Empress is mighty. Just a moment ago, I was planning to give up, but after hearing such a rule, my hope was immediately ignited. Since everyone is not going to rely on spiritual energy, they are going to rely on their own movement techniques. To those who aren't strong, this is a good thing, but to those who are strong, this isn't a good thing. All weapons will be provided by Voidless Realm. Yu Quan shouted out once again. Voidless Realm's Imperial Guards could be seen carrying all kinds of weapons onto the stage one after another. This kind of action caused those people who were hoping to get lucky to be angered badly. Because just a moment ago, they were still thinking of getting their hands on weapons, and right now, this path was immediately blocked off. This is too ruthless. This is simply not giving anyone a way out. Some of the minor family heads immediately started cheering. This is a typical counterattack. Perhaps, we might even be able to snatch the first place. Yi Hua sat at the back and smoked a cigarette. Seems like Baiji doesn't need me to lead her astray at all. Daddy, hug! Dong Huangli stood at the side and stretched out her hands, looking extremely adorable. Yi Hua flicked away the cigarette, then carried his daughter. Ali, how about we guess the winner and loser? Sure, if Ali wins, Daddy wants to accompany Ali to sleep. Sure, no problem. Yi Hua agreed. In any case, they aren't allowed to touch each other, and if I sleep together with them, I might as well accompany my daughter. Both Qingya and Donghuang Baiji heard what Yi Hua said. Their daughter is actually openly trying to snatch her husband. This is a bit interesting. On the stage, Yu Quan waved the wooden staff in his hand, and a huge lump of spiritual energy gathered at the center of the stage. Ha! Yu Quan stretched out his palm and shouted out lightly. The huge lump of white spiritual energy turned into pieces of white tokens and flew into everyone's hands. Other than the two people on the main stage, everyone else got their tokens. Everyone took in a breath of cold air. This old man's spirit control is so strong, as expected of someone from Voidless Realm. Qi Shuwen looked at the white token in his hand. In the blink of an eye, the white token disappeared, and a number appeared on his hand. Number 1. Qi Shuwen was a bit stupefied. There are so many people, and yet, I actually got number 1. Yu Quan said faintly, I believe that everyone has already seen the number on your hand. The martial arts competition has officially started. First match. Number 1 against number 2. Chapter 540. Xianba looked at the number in his hand and pursed his lips. Then he asked Qi Shuwen, Brother Qi, what's your number? Qi Shuwen was a little confused and didn't hear what Xianba said. Brother Qi. Xianba called out again. However, a figure suddenly appeared here. The audience was in an uproar. It was actually one of the northern aristocratic families, the Yi clan. Yi Shao. Xianba was also stunned and casually said, I don't know which unlucky guy will encounter Patriarch Yi. He's simply courting death. That was what everyone was thinking. It was too sudden for the northern aristocratic family's clan head to appear in the first round. But it felt so exciting. He didn't know who was going to fight Yi Shao, but he guessed that he was going to suffer. At this moment, Qi Shuwen's mind was blank. His opponent was actually Yi Shao. Patriarch Yi. The North was one of the aristocratic families. Why am I so unlucky? Seeing that Qi Shuwen's expression wasn't good, Xianba's mouth turned into an O. Brother Qi, it can't be you, right? Yi Xiao had been standing there for a while. Yu Quan furrowed his brows. The opposing side, enter the arena. As Yu Quan's voice faded, Qi Shuwen's right hand flashed with a faint white light. It was so bright that everyone could see it. Southern family head, if you don't come out now, it's equivalent to forfeiting. Yu Quan said coldly. At this moment, everyone was looking at Qi Shuwen, especially the people from the south. They seemed to be asking, hurry up and go, what are you waiting for? Don't embarrass the Southerners. Even if he had to die, he had to go. Meanwhile, the Northerners temporarily set aside their opinions of the Empress, and laughed heartily at the Southerners. At this moment, Qi Shuwen was under a lot of pressure. If he was a little more rational, he would have admitted defeat. His opponent was Yi Xiao. Her combat experience and physical strength were not on the same level. Even if he didn't use his spiritual energy, it would be very difficult for him to win. If he was not careful, he might be killed by the other party. He had just obtained the treasure, so he didn't want any accidents to happen. At this time, Qi Shuwen's heart began to struggle crazily. Fight for glory, fight for development. Kid, what are you waiting for? Charge. Yeah, don't embarrass the Southerners. There are no cowards in the South. Qi Shuwen, you're also a rising star of the South. How can you cower at such a crucial moment? Exactly. Even if the other party is the head of an aristocratic family, you still have to try. Everyone couldn't help but urge him. If someone retreated in the first battle in the South, the Northerners would probably slap their face on the ground. Xianba said in a low voice from the side, Brother Qi, go. If you don't go, then after this, your reputation will suffer a disastrous decline. Besides, your opponent is Yi Xiao. Even if you admit defeat, it is very normal. Listening to Xianba's words, Qi Shuwen suddenly regained his senses. Yes, his opponent was Yi Xiao. Even if he admitted defeat, no one would say anything. However, as long as he appeared to be doing his best, he might be able to cause a stir in the south. Thinking of this, Qi Shuwen had already made a decision. Xianba, thank you. Xianba smiled and patted Qi Shuwen's shoulder. Good luck. Qi Shuwen nodded, and then he leaped lightly and landed on the battlefield. The Southerners all stood up and cheered when they saw Qi Shuwen go on stage. This young man is good. On the other hand, the northern side was filled with boos. What a brat who overestimated himself. He should just admit defeat and go home to take care of his children. Yi Xiao stood with his hands behind his back and silently looked at the young man in front of him. Yi Xiao's expression was somewhat similar to that of his back then. As an elder, Yi Xiao was very polite and asked faintly, Don't you need a weapon? Qi Shuwen was an expert in fist techniques and speed. As for weapons, he was a bit weak. Yi family head, this junior doesn't need a weapon. Qi Shuwen appeared very polite and courteous. After all, the person in front of him was a big shot from the north. All right, I admire you a lot. Yi Xiao laughed lightly. His right hand continued to be placed on Yi Xiao's back while his left hand leaned forward. His meaning was very clear, I will only use one hand. Towards Yi Xiao's way of doing things, Qi Shuwen didn't say anything. Yi family head, sorry for offending you. The battle between the two was about to begin. Meanwhile on the spectator's stand, Yi Hua who was carrying his daughter asked, Ali, who will win? Dong Huangli puffed out her cheeks and said with a smile, Ali, I guess which big brother will win. The corner of Yi Hua's mouth twitched. My daughter is truly becoming more and more intelligent. Daddy, who do you think will win? Dong Huangli asked while grinning. Yi Hua said helplessly, Ali has already won. Hee, Qingya and Dong Huangbaiji heard what Dong Huangli said. Just how old is our daughter, and yet she is already this intelligent. Ali isn't guessing at all. This is the conclusion that she came up with after a detailed analysis. Because, this Yi Xiao, or perhaps it should be said that the North aristocratic family will lose, and the North aristocratic family will give the South the biggest benefits. This way, the North will have a reason to be arrogant. Yi Hua couldn't help but pinch his daughter's cheeks. This little fellow is becoming more and more sensible. She knows how to analyze problems. Dong Huangli put on a look of, I'm just a child, and I'm just guessing randomly. Dong Huangli was very low profile, just like how low profile her father was. On the stage, Qi Shuwen assumed a posture and looked at Yi Xiao, who was in front of him, vigilantly. Yi Xiao didn't make any movements, but in Qi Shuwen's eyes, Yi Xiao doesn't have any weaknesses at all. I don't even have the slightest chance of winning. As expected of the family head of an aristocratic family, just by standing there, he is giving off a very oppressive feeling. If Yi Xiao were to release his own spiritual qi, I would definitely be killed in an instant. The items in the Dragon God system won't be able to help me either. That's right. I can use my Dragon Qi to exchange for strength or speed. Let's take a look first. The Dragon Qi that I devoured is very precious. I still have to exchange it for other things. I can't just waste it like this. Qi Shuwen could be seen shouting out in a low voice. Then his body suddenly burst out. His speed was extremely fast. This caused everyone to cry out in surprise. I didn't expect that this little family head's strength would be so strong. Even without using his spiritual qi, he is still able to move at such a speed. As expected of a young hero. Even Yi Xiao was a bit surprised. This young man is indeed not bad. His speed is very fast. However, his opponent is me, Yi Xiao. Yi Xiao was still standing there without moving. However, this was just a misconception that he was giving off, and in actuality, he had already shifted his position. Qi Shuwen's punch landed on the air, and he immediately felt that the situation was bad. As expected of the family head, he is actually able to move at such a speed without using his spiritual qi. Yi Xiao immediately sent a side kick over. This set of moves was very fast, as if he knew that the opponent would be able to dodge the kick without a trace of hesitation. Yi Xiao laughed lightly. Not bad, however, it is merely not bad. It is still not enough to defeat me. Yi Xiao lightly blocked the kick with his left hand, then flipped his hand and grabbed onto Yi Xiao. Qi Shuwen's leg was grabbed onto. Chapter 541. Qi Shuwen steadied himself in the air, his four limbs firmly touching the arena to increase the friction. All 10 of his fingers were rubbed until they bled, leaving behind long bloody marks. It was a ghastly sight. Qi Shuwen slid all the way to the edge of the arena before he managed to stabilize himself. If the arena wasn't big enough, he would have already fallen off. Yi Xiao was a little surprised. He actually managed to stabilize it. Interesting. The people in the south broke out in cold sweat. Luckily, they managed to stabilize themselves. He did not embarrass himself. The northerner laughed out loud. How could this brat be a match for Patriarch Yi? It was good that he had fallen down just now. Otherwise, Patriarch Yi would have taken his life. On the viewing platform, Yi Hua also slightly paid attention to Qi Shuwen. Qi Shuwen's willpower is not bad. Your Honor. He is that young man from yesterday. Zhu Tian's voice appeared in Yi Hua's mind. Since it's this young man, things have become even more interesting. I wonder what kind of surprise this young man will bring to me. Qi Shuwen, who was in the middle of the field, stood up. When he heard the mocking laughter of the northerners, he was very angry. Damn it! He had to win. You must. Qi Shuwen didn't hesitate anymore. He exchanged all the dragon energy in the system into strength and speed. Since he knew Yi Xiao's speed, he had to keep up with his own speed. Therefore he added the dragon energy into speed, which was about 30% to 70%. After confirming it in the system, Qi Shuwen immediately felt that his body had undergone a qualitative change. His strength had increased, and his body felt much lighter. However, the dragon energy that he had been accumulating for a few months was gone just like that. He had originally planned to build a dragon palace at the bottom of the sea, but now it seemed like his plan was ruined. He didn't know how many months it would take for him to finish it. Now that things had come to this, they had to win the competition, or at least get into the top 3. Take more longevity fruits to comfort him. A cold light flashed in Qi Shuwen's eyes. The amount of dragon qi he had just added was not an ordinary amount. Qi Shuwen had intended to use it to build the dragon palace. With the dragon palace, it would produce dragon qi. Although it was not a lot, it would be endless. This was a huge amount of dragon energy, which showed how much Qi Shuwen had added. The current Qi Shuwen was like a completely different person. Ha! Qi Shuwen snorted coldly. His body leaned forward and he stomped on the ground. Even the sturdy blue stone on the stage was broken into pieces. It could be seen just how strong the force was. Yi Xiao's face darkened. How did this youth's speed increase so much? Yi Xiao wasn't the only one who thought this way. The people from the south and north were also stunned. This youth appeared in front of Yi Xiao in the blink of an eye. His speed was so fast that it left people speechless. And this was the result without using his spiritual energy. This young man had hidden his strength so deeply. Yi Xiao dodged quickly. His steps were a little messy, but it was not a big deal. Qi Shuwen focused on physical attacks. Fists, kicks, elbows, and knees were all lethal weapons. The moment Yi Xiao dodged, Qi Shuwen quickly adjusted his attacking posture. This was a bit against the definition of gravity. It was like a speeding car suddenly making a 180-degree turn. Of course, this kind of action put a burden on the body, but Qi Shuwen was proficient in this aspect, so he minimized the damage caused by the burden. Yi Xiao was shocked. He hurriedly used his left hand to block Qi Shuwen's fist. However, Qi Shuwen still had his own knee. Yi Xiao reflexively used his right hand to block. This scene was banned. Everyone who was present was dumbstruck. Didn't patriarchy just let others use one hand? Why did he do it now? The northerners felt that they had lost all face. The person on their side is the family head of an aristocratic family. And the other party is just a small family head. Since I have already let him go, then I should let him go all the way. Now that you used your right hand, isn't that equivalent to slapping my own face? Qi Shuwen, well done. Xianba shouted out loudly, appearing to be especially excited. Following Xianba's shout, all of the southerners started shouting out. This young man has brought glory to the south too much, letting the other party's family head lose face. The northerners who were still arrogant just a moment ago all stopped talking, and it was the southerners who started shouting out. This is too great. Looking at the situation, Duan Ho said faintly, this Yi Xiao is too careless. Jiang Yuanzhou nodded his head. That's right, this young man is not simple, he has hidden his strength very deeply. Chu, he said gravely, under the situation where they are not using spiritual energy, the speed of the two should be on the same level. However, the toughness of Yi Xiao's fleshly body should be stronger than that young man's. Duan Ho said coldly, no matter how strong Yi Xiao's fleshly body is, under continuous attacks, Yi Xiao will not be able to withstand it. I hope that Yi Xiao will not lose too badly. Yi Xiao did intend to lose, but he did not intend to lose to a nameless junior. On this point, both Yi Hua and his daughter had guessed wrongly. However, this Qi Shuwen was also a different kind of person. That huge amount of dragon energy gave him the strength to fight against Yi Xiao. Of course, this was only under the condition that he didn't use his spiritual energy. If he used his spiritual energy, the gap between them would be immediately apparent. In the end, Qi Shuwen was still no match for Yi Xiao. However, the rules of the competition were like this. There was no other way. Young man, you are very powerful. Yi Xiao shook his hands and pushed Qi Shuwen away. This young man had actually caused him to lose so much face. Today, he could only kill him. Apart from wanting to kill him, Yi Xiao was also very surprised. This young man didn't have such speed at first. Ever since he was sent flying, he suddenly erupted. He should be hiding his strength. What a meticulous mind. Such a young man couldn't be allowed to live. He would definitely be a scourge in the future. Although Yi Xiao wanted the Empress to step down, it did not mean that he was not loyal to the north. Qi Shuwen could already feel Yi Xiao's killing intent. It seemed that he had angered Yi Xiao. Today would not end so easily. Looks like I have to go all out. Yi family head, be careful. Qi Shuwen didn't hold back and took the initiative to attack. That strange speed erupted once again, and that freakish sharp turn. It was obviously a straight line attack, but when it suddenly made a turn, it was impossible to defend against it. Yi Xiao snorted coldly, and an imposing aura burst out from him. Everyone couldn't help but be speechless. To be able to release such an imposing aura without using any spiritual energy, as expected of a family head. You will be beaten to death by me. Yi Zhao's fist directly shot out. He actually chose to face Qi Shuwen head-on. Boom! An invisible wave of air suddenly exploded, and the entire arena was swept clean by this wave of air. It could definitely be licked. The entire stage became silent once again. Looking at the two people on the stage, the northerners were stupefied. A small family head from the south actually received Yi Zhao's fist. How is this possible? When the southerners saw Qi Shuwen receiving Yi Zhao's fist, they cheered as if they had been injected with chicken blood. They completely didn't expect that Qi Shuwen would actually be able to receive Yi Zhao's fist. Chapter 542. Not only was Qi Shuwen stunned, Yi Xiao was also stunned. Because Yi Xiao had not used his spiritual power to punch for a long time, he did not know the power of his punch at all. At this moment, he was stunned by Qi Shuwen in front of him. He felt even more ashamed, especially when he heard the whispers from the north. He became even angrier. A wave of anger erupted from Yi Zhao's body. He raised his right fist again, and a terrifying aura burst out. And Qi Shuwen did not want to be outdone. He would use the most primitive method to fight. Ha! Qi Shuwen shouted, and his right fist punched out again. Their fists collided violently again, and the blue stone under their feet instantly cracked. Just with physical strength, the sturdy blue stone was actually broken. This made everyone exclaim. This Qi Shuwen was indeed the rising star of the south. Amazing! A huge wave of air swept across the entire martial arts field. Qi Shuwen was pushed back a few meters by Yi Xiao, and immediately spat out a mouthful of blood. Qi Shuwen was also too arrogant. He thought that his strength was similar to Yi Xiao, so he used the same method to fight again. As expected, he was still at a disadvantage. After all, he added the dragon energy to his speed, and did not add much to his strength. How could he fight against Yi Xiao? He should use speed to win. This was the result of being too arrogant. The people from the north cheered again, as if Yi Xiao had done some shocking feat, and the people from the south looked at Qi Shuwen. Even if Qi Shuwen admitted defeat now, they would not blame him. Just like what Xinba said, facing such a strong opponent, even if he admitted defeat, it would be fine. But this punch did not crush Qi Shuwen's confidence. Instead, a strong desire to fight surged in his heart. He began to cheat. Qi Shuwen chose to overdraft his dragon energy to make up for his weakness in strength. This plan was to win against Yi Xiao, and become famous in one battle. After replenishing his strength, Qi Shuwen took a deep breath, and just like before, he punched out again. Everyone felt that Qi Shuwen was crazy. He was beaten to the point of bleeding just now, but he still chose to use his fist. You should use speed. Yi Xiao snorted. Really, a young man who does not know the immensity of heaven and earth? Then let me teach you a lesson. Yi Xiao raised his right fist and punched out again. Once again, the two of them clashed head-on. This time, the blue stone under their feet cracked more, and the wave of air produced was more violent. How is this possible? Everyone stood up, because the situation in front of them was too unbelievable. Yi Xiao was actually pushed back 5 meters. Don't look down on these 5 meters. Yi Xiao is the head of an aristocratic family. On the other hand, Qi Shuwen was also a ruthless character. He did not hesitate to overdraft his dragon energy to win. If he could not repay the overdraft in time, the consequences would be very serious. This was even more serious than borrowing a loan. Yi Xiao was actually beaten back. Our southern family's patriarch actually defeated Yi Xiao. Qi Shuwen! Qi Shuwen! Qi Shuwen! The southerners began to shout in unison, cheering for Qi Shuwen. The northerners seemed very gloomy. Listening to the cheers, Qi Shuwen suddenly felt that it was worth it. However, Yi Xiao was not in a good state at this time. His eyes were emitting a strange aura, and his body was trembling slightly. The shame in his heart was causing him to lose control of his spirit Qi. This damned brat actually made him embarrass himself like this. Furthermore, he made a fool of himself on such an important occasion. He must die. A terrifying spiritual pressure immediately burst out, and Yi Xiao punched towards the empty space. A fist-shaped spirit Qi could be seen attacking towards Qi Shuwen, emitting a terrifying pressure. Things happened too quickly, and everyone was unable to react in time. This is only the first match, and the northern family's patriarch actually violated the rules and used spirit qi to kill someone. Qi Shuwen immediately reacted, and the spirit qi in his body exploded out. I am unable to dodge this attack. I can only take it head-on. A golden spiritual wall immediately appeared in front of Yi Xiao, emitting out a dense dragon energy. However, when facing against Yi Xiao's fist, the golden wall seemed to be unable to withstand a single blow. The golden wall instantly shattered, but the golden wall was also slightly weakened. Qi Shuwen protected his chest with both of his hands, and the white fist fiercely smashed onto Qi Shuwen's arms. At this moment, Qi Shuwen felt that his entire body was falling apart, and his consciousness was also leaving his body. Suddenly, Qi Shuwen's body flew out and fiercely smashed onto the protective wall, and even sunk into the wall. At this moment, Qi Shuwen understood that the gap between them was not just a little big. Then, he completely fainted. This kind of result caused everyone present to be stupefied. Yi Xiao actually violated the rules and used spirit qi to kill the southern family's future rising star. Truly vicious. Everyone from the southern family immediately reacted. Yi Xiao, you are shameless. Yi Xiao, you bastard, you violated the rules and used spirit qi to launch a sneak attack. Trash Yi Xiao, I look down on you. And you are even a family's patriarch. Tui. Right now, Yi Xiao's expression was gloomy. Just now when he was in rage, he didn't think too much about it. However, it's also good that he was killed, lest he becomes the northern family's opponent in the future. Dong Huang Baiji did not say anything. Seeing that the empress did not say anything, Ying Jingshan also remained silent. At this moment, Yu Quan appeared in the sky again and announced the result of the match. Northern Yi family's patriarch, Yi Xiao, violated the rules and used spirit qi, disqualified from the match. Winner, Southern Qi family, Qi Shuwen. Along with Yu Quan's wave of his hand, a few Voidless Realms Imperial Guards dragged Qi Shuwen out from the protective wall, then fed him spring water from Voidless Realm. Not long later, Qi Shuwen woke up. This caused Yi Xiao's jaw to almost drop onto the ground. This person actually didn't die. How is this possible? If not for the dragon energy protecting his body, Qi Shuwen would indeed have died. It's a pity, Yi Xiao suffered a double loss. The northerners felt ashamed. I violated the rules and killed someone, but before that person died, he was saved by Voidless Realm. This is too ironic. Right now, Yi Xiao no longer had the face to stay on the stage and immediately flew out of the stage. Following Yi Xiao's departure, the southerners began cheering for the victory of the first match. Qi Shuwen took a deep breath, then bowed towards the empress, thanking her for saving his life. Afterward, he bowed towards Ying Jingshan. Hearing everyone's cheers and applause, Qi Shuwen felt that he did not suffer a loss. Although he was sent flying by Yi Xiao's punch, under the situation where he didn't have any spirit qi, it was still uncertain who would be the winner. Yi Xiao returned to his seat. Xian Ba hugged onto Qi Shuwen. Brother Qi, you are my idol right now. Cough, cough, cough. Qi Shuwen coughed for a while. There was a bit of internal injury that had not healed yet. I'm sorry. I didn't hurt you, right? Xian Ba hurriedly apologized. Qi Shuwen smiled and shook his head. I won. I won. The two took another look at each other. They felt that there was a gay relationship between them. On the viewing platform, Dong Huangli said sweetly, Daddy, you have to accompany Ali to sleep tonight. Chapter 543. Losing the first match made everyone in the north very unhappy. After all, the one who lost was a family master of an aristocratic family. There was no reason for him to lose. The entire north viewing platform seemed to be abnormally gloomy. On the other hand, the faces of the south were brimming with a happy smile. This Qi Shuwen really lived up to their expectations. After this match, Qi Shuwen's name will probably resound throughout the entire cultivation world. Perhaps it is still worth it. Yu Quan slowly announced the next match. Number 100 vs number 200. Xian Ba was startled. Xian Ba, it can't be you, right? Qi Shuwen felt that this was too much of a coincidence. This can't be intentionally arranged, right? Xian Ba was indeed number 100. I originally felt that this number was quite auspicious, but I didn't expect him to be on the second match. It's me. Xian Ba smiled helplessly. Qi Shu Win patted on Xian Ba's shoulder and cheered him on. After taking a few deep breaths, Xian Ba leaped onto the stage with great difficulty and stood on the stage, waiting for his opponent. No one recognized Xian Ba, and they reckoned that he was just a new family master. When Chen Xuanzong's figure appeared on the stage, everyone in the north cried out in surprise. This Chen Xuanzong was a dark horse in the north. His individual strength was extremely strong, and if not for the fact that he didn't have an ancient godly item, he would probably be able to sit on the seat of an aristocratic family. Therefore, with Chen Xuanzong's current strength being pulled to the same position as an aristocratic family, it should be impossible for him to lose. In the previous match, his opponent was too sinister. He hid his strength too deeply. Otherwise, Yi Xiao wouldn't have been angered to the point of using his spiritual energy. Xian Ba had heard of Chen Xuanzong's story before. This man had only appeared for a few months, and he already became a dark horse in the north. Master, what should we do? The opponent is very strong. Xian Ba became anxious. Just now, Qi Shu Win won the first match. I cannot lose, otherwise, I will lose my face. Elder Feng remained silent for a long time, then asked faintly, Xian Ba, do you really want to win? That's right, master. This is the match that made me famous. I cannot lose. Xian Ba said anxiously. If he were to lose this match, his future path would be even more difficult. Xian Ba, leave it to me. However, I will only help you this once. In the future, you have to work hard. Elder Feng's words were filled with confidence. His righteousness reached the clouds, and if he wasn't in his soul form, he would be able to come out and start a massacre, bringing disaster to the world. Seeing that his master had agreed to his request, Xian Ba immediately felt a surge of confidence, and his entire person changed. Thank you, master. Xian Ba, relax your entire body. Don't resist. Just a little bit of pain, and master will soon enter your body. Master, come on, I'm not afraid of pain. Xian Ba was already prepared to welcome this strange pain. Old Feng let out a soft cry and immediately took control of Xian Ba's body. It was indeed a little painful, but Xian Ba could still see things in front of him. This was also a rare learning opportunity. Chen Xuanzong noticed Xian Ba's transformation. If Xian Ba was still a youngster just now, he had already turned into an old man who had been through hundreds of battles. A feeling of vicissitudes of life was slowly being emitted from him. The space between Chen Xuanzong's brows revealed a hint of graveness. The pressure that the other party suddenly gave off was extremely intense. What's going on? Everyone felt the change in Xian Ba and were very curious. It was as if he had suddenly become a different person. Qingya, from the looks of it, your pursuer is going to lose. Yi Hua suddenly said. This stingy husband of mine is jealous. Qingya, who was at the side, was speechless. Dong Huangli cried out in surprise. Ah, this is Mommy Qing's ex-boyfriend? Qingya wanted to cry, but no tears came out. Just where did Ali learn these words from? Yi Hua was a bit displeased. While hugging onto his daughter, he said, That's right, this is your Mommy Qing's ex-boyfriend. He even chased after her all the way here. Her husband and Ali's words made Qingya very speechless. Qingya explained, Yi Hua, we were just friends in the past. According to the books, there is no normal friendship between a man and a woman, unless that man is very ugly. Dong Huangli's words gave Qingya a huge blow. Clearly, this Chen Xuanzong is not ugly, and on the contrary, he is very handsome. Yi Hua followed along and said, That's right, how can there be any normal friendship between a man and a woman? This time, Qingya was truly angered. Her pair of beautiful eyes immediately turned red, and a layer of mist even emerged from her eyes. She felt extremely wronged. I have already given birth to a child for you, and my belly is already so big, and yet, you are still talking about me like that, making it seem like I am having an affair behind your back. How can I not feel sad? Dong Huang Baiji turned her head around and took a look, then glared at her daughter. This is so rude. Yi Hua didn't expect that Qingya would have such a big reaction. He was just teasing her a bit, but right now, there were a lot of people around, and he felt embarrassed to go and comfort his wife. Thus, he could only send out little Ali. Dong Huangli also knew that she was in the wrong. She jumped down from her father's embrace and walked to the front of Qingya, then said in a low voice, Mommy Qing, Ali was wrong, Can you forgive Ali? No matter how angry she was, she shouldn't make things difficult for a child. Qingya squeezed out a trace of a smile. Mommy Qing didn't blame Ali. Qingya didn't like Yihua making jokes like this, because she was loyal to Yihua, and yet, Yihua said that she was betraying her, and she felt very uncomfortable. Mommy Qing, Ali will tell you a joke, okay? Dong Huangli looked at Qingya and begged. It seems like if you don't listen to Ali's joke, Ali would cry. Qingya, who was originally very sad, felt a bit better. However, if Yihua wants to coax his wife, he will have to put in a lot of effort. This is truly the evil that I brought upon myself, and yet, I still have to use this kind of thing to tease my wife. On the stage, Xiaofan stretched out his hand, and an ordinary-looking long sword appeared in his hand. Meanwhile, his left hand was naturally placed on his back. At first glance, Xiaofan didn't seem to be very eye-catching, but the aura that Xiaofan was emitting caused everyone to exclaim in admiration. Xiaofan, who was holding onto the long sword, looked as if his entire body was a long sword, giving off a feeling that he was an unbreakable mountain. Xiaofan's gaze was very calm, just like the water of a lake. Aren't you going to choose a weapon? Chen Xuanzong felt that he had met his match this time. Just this aura alone doesn't lose out to an aristocratic family's family head. Chen Xuanzong wasn't the only one who had such a thought. Everyone in the south also had such a terrifying thought. Just now that Qi Shuwen had already caused them to exclaim in admiration, and this Xiaofan's performance was even more shocking. Qi Shuwen, who was on the viewing platform, was also dumbstruck. Xiaofan is actually this strong? From the looks of it, Xiaofan was hiding his strength as well. Qi Shuwen, who was on the stage, stretched out his hand, and a long sword fell into his hand. Immediately, Qi Shuwen brandished the long sword a few times. Be careful! Chen Xuanzong shouted out in a low voice. Xiaofan was still very calm. Young man, the one who should be careful is you. Young man? As a demon emperor, this was the first time that Chen Xuanzong heard someone addressing him in such a manner. Looking at that young and tender face, Chen Xuanzong snorted coldly. You're boasting shamelessly. You're tuning in to the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.